Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Player's Take. This is not a regularly scheduled episode. However, it is an episode of the Player's Take nonetheless. We're doing a Spoilercast. But before we get to that, let me introduce us. I am your host, Justin D. Simone, joined by my co-hosts, Stalker Montrell. How you doing, man?
I'm a stalker? Oh, I hate those things. Those things
Stalker Montrell Rice. Sorry, I didn't say your full name. My bad.
No, you ain't gotta say my full name anymore. Just say Montrell. Yeah, just say Montrell.
I mean, bro, we've been doing this for what are we on? 80 episodes or so,
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, people know your real name. You're not getting away from that. Or you just want me to, you wanted to be more casual. You want me to just be like, we're we're friends shooting the shit. So I should just say Montrell.
Yeah, it's just more casual. That's it.
But it's more like, I don't know. I feel like it should be more formal for people who have not listened before,
I guess.
Okay. Well,
so this is the podcast, guys.
This is a video game show. It's our weekly show where we talk about video games, video game news, and other topics pertaining to video games. We do post weekly a normal show at 6 a.m. Central Time on Fridays on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and your favorite podcast app of choice. And we also post on YouTube 6 a.m. Central Time. So on Saturdays. So as I said earlier, this is not a regular episode. We have decided to do something a little different. So we are going to start taking the deep video game discussions kind of out of the regular episodes when it makes sense. And this is the first instance where it really made sense. We want to really deep dive on this game, but we don't want to bog down a regular episode with this discussion. And also we kind of want to get the spoiler discussions out of the regular episode so it's not like a minefield for people. I think this will be a better format for us because we're really going to be able to go deep here. This is all we're talking about this week is The Last of Us 2. Full spoilers, so if you haven't played the game or haven't finished the game, get out now. We are going to be discussing the full plot, everything related to the plot. We'll also be talking about the first game as well, somewhat. So, we just think this will work better for us. It'll be a little bit more off key, but it'll allow us to go deeper on these games and just kind of really get in the muck with it, So this is our first one, so we'll see how it goes. But Montrell, how do you feel about this? You excited about the format?
Yes. The previous format we were doing really didn't allow us to. We had to kind of blast through everything, and then we'll talk about the game a lot, and they had to blast through everything else. So I like this format as just having one dedicated episode to a game that we like. So a game that we both played or something of that nature. So I think it's really cool.
Well, it'll help us keep the normal episode lengths a little bit down too, because I think that's been a consistent problem for us, is that very often we talk about a game we're playing and that discussion goes for an hour plus, and we end up having an episode that's 2.5 hours, or 3 hours. So
exactly, yeah.
We do want to keep those episodes a little bit on the shorter end of the spectrum. So I think this will help us with that as well. So, all right. Well, let's just jump right in, man. I told you pre-show I have some stuff written down here that I want to talk about, but I kind of want to just make this free form and as organic as possible. So where do you want to start? Do you want to just go over your overall impressions of the game?
Yeah, I'm just going to do my overall impressions. I may dibble and dab deeply into points here and there, but overall impressions of the game, it's like an 8 out of 10 for me. I dive back into the game, started New Game Plus, and you get all your items and all your power-ups and stuff like that throughout the game. I've been watching other people play it. This one Twitter guy I watch, he was playing it, and the way he plays his games is really methodical and stuff like that. So you can turn this game into Metal Gear 5, the way people play this game. And I've started to play it like that, to where I'm just running in and everything of that nature, and I'm just doing crazy shit because the mechanics of the game allow you to do that. They don't really introduce the mechanics of the game like that to you, all the crazy shit that you can do, because for the longest time I went through an entire game without knowing that you can do an airborne assassination.
Well, dude, I've been seeing these clips on Twitter. There's an account that does these slow-mo, not slow-mo, but really cinematic clips of gameplay. I don't know how they do this, but they look awesome. But they've been doing it for The Last of Us 2. And some of the moves they're doing, I'm like, you can do that? Like the airborne assassination, the you can jump backwards onto the ground, I think.
Yeah.
So you're like
you can slide
prone
back
on your back. Yeah. I didn't know that was a thing at all until I saw that on Twitter. So you're totally right about that. The game does not do a very good job of introducing these things to you.
Yeah, because for the longest I didn't know you had it. There were certain instances where I was like, man, this would be, an airborne assassination would be really cool right here if I could just drop down on an enemy. And they do have that, but they never introduced that to you in the game at all. They never put you in a scenario. They try to put you in scenarios where they introduce the mechanics to you, right? And they never introduced airborne mechanics. They did introduce a slide back mechanic. So that mechanic I knew about.
They did? When did they do that? What part of the game?
Very early in the game, they teach you how to slide with Ellie. They also say in the caption you can slide back as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so that part I didn't know how to do. The only thing I didn't know how to do was the airborne assassinations. And I didn't know all the triggers, or animation triggers I call them, where you can do certain moves where you shoot them in the leg, shoot them in the arm. I knew there were certain animation triggers, but I didn't know it was so there was a large variable for them. There aren't just certain instances. There's like almost any point in the body where you like stagger a human enemy, you can do almost like a assassination type move with Abby, or especially with Abby, but with Ellie as well. As far as the game, the story, I think first of all, I love the gameplay. I think they improved on every aspect of the gameplay. I was one of those proponents. I was one of those people that hated, and when I say hated, I hated The Last of Us 1's gameplay. I thought it was very generic, first-person shooters. I did like some of the mechanics of, you can upgrade here and there on the fly with the stuff you find and scavenge. In this game, they took all that to like the 10th degree. They turned this into an actual video game instead of trying to be like realistic. I feel like they were too grounded in Last of Us 1, even though there were some ridiculous moments in Last of Us 1. In Last of Us 2, there are so many ridiculous moments. Ellie is about 5, I would say 5'4", 5'3", and probably a $110.
I know.
And she,
right? Oh man, yeah.
And funny. She is doing crazy shit. Like when I say Solid Snake, I literally mean she's doing Metal Gear, Venom Snake, Solid Snake type shit. Yeah. And you're like, where did she get this military training from? Because it's just the amount of shit that she's doing in this game is crazy.
Well, she's like overpowering like clickers and like other people too with those scrawny arms.
Exactly.
People are yelling about Abby being jacked, but I mean, on the other side of the spectrum, like Ellie's doing crazy shit with the fact that she subsists off like grains. It's like that's what it looks like, at least. Like she's super skinny. So
exactly. So I just thought that I actually enjoyed it. I knew it was so ridiculous. I'm like, this is so fucking ridiculous. There's no way this little person can overpower this man, but whatever. Yeah. I'm loving it. So I mean, I love that aspect of the game. I also love the story. I did love the characters they introduced. I didn't feel like, this is my personal opinion, I didn't feel like a lot of the characters were shoehorned in just to be shoehorned. I saw that complaint a lot. Like, I didn't care about the characters. They died and I just didn't fucking care about them. And this is, even though I only watched 2 reviews, this was like everyone was tweeting this. So a lot of reviewers were tweeting this, and I just didn't agree with that. 2 of the main characters, Dina and Jesse, I really like those characters. For the short amount of time that Jesse was on the screen, I liked him as a character. I thought he brought interesting dynamic to the cast. Dina was phenomenal as Ellie's partner. I thought the dynamic between they were so opposite of each other that they worked. Like they were bouncing off each other. Ellie is really stoic and kind of cold, doesn't really open up too much. She's kind of introvert, whereas Dina is such an extrovert that like you would wonder how these two got together, but they are together, and it's really cool from that aspect. I like the level design. They did take like so level design is really important to me. especially in a game like this. So the first game, I think we touched on it. Actually, on the stream, we touched on it, where in the first game there were like boxes set up, like little crates and stuff. They look a part of the level, but they were just so set up like a video game where you're like, oh, this is about to be an action scene area. Like you knew it was about to happen. Where in this game, everything is set up to where you don't know. You can just use the environment. The environment looks organic. It doesn't look like it's set up like a video game, if that makes any sense.
Well, I'll bring up an example. Because, there was a number of times where you're running on rooftops, and those are set up to look like combat zones because they have like the giant like air conditioners or radiators or whatever on top. Yeah. And they're very box-like, and they're perfectly like, midsection level, so you could crouch under them for cover. And there's a lot of times where I was running through those places where I'm like, oh, there's about to be a combat encounter here. And nope, there's no combat.
Exactly.
So the game does a very good job of like kind of keeping you on your toes for the most part, of not knowing when combat's coming.
Yeah, that I agree with. Because that was going to actually be one of my other points. The game sets you up for combat in various ways. At no point, I was always on my toes in the game because I didn't know at certain points where I was just going to be in combat at all. Even when they try to set it up, like, oh, you walk into this dark, scary room and you think you're about to run into something, then nothing happens. And then when you think you're free and clear, something happens. So it's just... I like the flow of it. There were some off moments where you walk into a building with Ellie. I think when you get separated right after you find the theater, and you get separated from Dina. Dina stays back at the theater. There's just one area where you had to kill 3 people. They thought you were the WLF, and we'll explain that later. But they thought you were them, but you weren't. And you search the entire building, and then once you get to the workbench, it's a trigger event. So once you get to the workbench, these 3 enemies just spawn out of nowhere, and it's kind of unrealistic from that standpoint. And I know I just talked about it being a video game, but once you check the entire building, like I scavenged the entire fucking building, and there was nowhere no one can hide in that building when I scavenged it. And then they just come out of nowhere. So, and there are other instances like that with like, not just with humans, but with the zombie monsters as well, where they just appear out of nowhere sometime. And it doesn't happen often, but it happens enough to where I noticed it. And I didn't like that. I thought they could have introduced those enemies or those encounters better than what they did. Maybe just have a couple locked doors here and there to where they open up once you trigger that event or whatever.
The one you're talking about, that's what happened. I still thought it was cheesy though, because they're hiding in a room, like it was like 4 people hiding in a room, and it just like you're running around this whole time. And I'm really like I check everything in these games. So I'm like going into every room. I went into every single apartment that you were able to go into in this building before I went to the workbench. I wanted to make sure I got all the parts I could to upgrade, get the maximum upgrades I could. And then the cutscene plays out, and it's just like, I will say this game definitely sometimes does that, where it's like you're running around an environment, there's no one there, and you have this like OP hearing mechanic, and you're using it to make sure there's no enemies around. And then all of a sudden, like the game just like, there's people on top of you, and it's like Ellie doesn't hear it, you don't hear it. It's just they just show up. They're just there. It's like, I think they use that a little bit too much to me. That happens quite a bit. That was definitely the biggest, most egregious moment of it, because that was a section of the game that I don't think you had in a fight before that at that point, because you leave the theater, and I think that was one of the places that was like on the side that you can kind of explore going to your destination or whatever. And there hadn't been any combat up to that point. I think they just put that there to like, keep you on your toes kind of thing. But it just felt like unnecessary and kind of cheap, honestly, because the guy attacks you and then there's 3 other people shooting you at the same time. It's like, I'm sure on harder difficulties that encounter is a pain in the ass,
So the enemy encounters were those surprise enemy encounters were really weird. I do like the dynamic between Ellie's gameplay and Abby's gameplay. A lot of people really didn't touch on that, which I thought was weird. Ellie's gameplay is really survival like, whereas Abby's gameplay is more I don't want to say Call of Duty, but it's more of
she has the heavier weapons and the better armaments for sure. And I mean, based on their affiliations, it kind of makes sense because, you know, Abby's a wolf. So, of course, she would have better guns and, you know,
exactly,
bombs and stuff, you know, because they're organized. So,
and I saw another complaint about the puzzles. I'm just be honest, this is not Uncharted. I don't understand what people were expecting for like puzzles. Like, this is a broken down city. We're not going to have ancient puzzles in a broken down city.
Some CEO put this elaborate, like, you know, vault puzzle for his like personal safe or something. Yeah,
exactly. No, we're not going to have that. I mean, the most puzzles they could do is like, you know, you have a safe and you have to figure out, you know, the locks on the safe, and they abuse the fuck out of that. But that's like realistically the only thing in this type of game environment or game setting that can be possible, in my opinion. I just didn't know where they could go with that, in my opinion. I'm pretty sure they could have set up elaborate puzzles, but
they could have. I think people would have hated it.
Exactly, because not only would it bring down the tone of the game, but it would completely break the momentum of the game as well. Like, this game is kind of designed to keep you going, keep you moving, keep you on your toes. Yep. Even in the slow moments, you're always moving forward, if that makes any sense. I'm thinking of something they could have done, right? You know how they had the ladder puzzles, which they used very sparingly in this game. Yeah.
Or even the rope puzzles. They could have done things where you, like, you know, you're running up to a section and there's two directions you can go with the ladder, right? And you like have to go to both to figure out what to do, and you have to do things on both sides in order to open a door or some shit, you know, like turn a generator on this side, and then that allows you to do something on this side, you know, things like that. But I just those kind of puzzles they're not fun puzzles. They're like a waste of your time. It's not hard to figure them out. And I think people wouldn't have liked them. So I think it's kind of an unfair criticism because the game knows what it is, you know, and sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm going to say, like, this game has an identity. Whereas The Last of Us 1, it was kind of struggling, in my opinion. It was still trying to get out of that shadow of Uncharted, in my opinion. Whereas this game knows what it is. It's a survival shooter game. And we're not taking anything away from that. Like, that this is what we are. Right. We're not trying to be Resident Evil. We're not trying to be Silent Hill with these puzzles and stuff like that. This is because even in Resident Evil, right? I told you about the police station, where the police station used to be a museum, and then they put 3 emblems on 3 sides of the fucking police station to get underground to the police station. And it's like, that's not, it's fun. Yes, it's Resident Evil, but it's not realistic. And this world is like they're trying to go for that realistic feel. And Ellie running into like a theater and like, wow, it looks like the theater, the owner used to be a fucking, you know, puzzle head. So he made all these intricate puzzles to get inside. No, that's stupid.
There's like levers on the busts or whatever, you know. No, dude.
There's like a dummy mannequin that's like a hidden door behind it or something. No. So, now there is one. For as far as the story goes, I'm pretty sure we're going to talk about that. I'll let that go later on in the podcast. But I just do like an overview of it, or not an overview, but like the way the story flowed. I love the way Ellie's story flowed. I did like the switching back and forth. I did not care for the flashbacks for Ellie. I think they did that shit way too much. I liked it the first 2 times they did it, and then they did it like 2 or 3 more times, I believe. I may be over exaggerating. I think they did it 4 times in total. I was cool with the first 2 times. By the last one, I was over the shit. I'm like, I
know what you're thinking of, because the first one was that the museum?
I think
they were in the spaceship or the space pod. That was the first one.
That was the first one? I thought that was.
I'm pretty sure that was the first one.
It was. You're right. Yeah.
And the second one was the one where they're trying to get the guitar strings, right?
Yep.
That was the one that I felt like just didn't need to be there. It was like such a waste of.
It was long
time.
Too. It was really long.
It was long. There was combat in it, and it was like it didn't feel like it contributed very much to the story for me. I will say though that there is a funny moment in there when you're fighting a bloater, and it was weird because I don't know how they design the encounter. It feels like to be like a desperate struggle because you can't kill the bloater with your like weapons and equipment. It feels like, at least it felt that way to me, because it starts charging you at a certain point constantly, and you have to like get caught by it.
Oh,
And then
okay.
did that happen to you? Because that's what happened to me. Like I got caught by it, and it does the animation where it's about to rip Ellie's face off. Like it puts the fingers in her mouth, and then Joel comes up and like saves her, or whatever.
Yeah. I feel like that. I feel like they designed that encounter to be a tutorial, but somehow maybe
it ended up here.
Yeah, through cuts and editing through the game, they were like, "Hey, let's put it further into the game."
I think that's true because I was listening to a Spoilercast that Neil was on, Neil Druckmann, and he did say that things were in different places.
Okay.
At certain parts of development, and he didn't really confirm what specifically that was, but yeah, they were trying to place where they wanted certain scenes, and I do think that one in particular might have been a casualty, because that feels like one that should have been there earlier, like you said. Like
it feels like a tutorial scene. Like it feels like they tried to set it up as a tutorial.
Yeah,
but they didn't want to do the whole you start out as Joel and Ellie thing. Like I guess they didn't want to be generic in that aspect, but just the way that scene played out, it was everything about it, from like you learning how to do the sniping and everything of that nature. Like, because I felt like by that time in the game, you already knew how to shoot. And it's like,
well, also the game never gives you a situation where you need to care about bullet drop. Really?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's such a weird mechanic that they introduced there. Like it just feels so random because you're never far enough away from anybody to bullet drop really matters. Like it matters for the bow and arrow, but for like the rifle, not really, from my experience at least.
Yeah, I didn't really have that experience of bullet drop in actual combat situations besides that flashback. And then Ellie's flashbacks, hers were well placed in my opinion.
You mean Abby's?
I said Ellie, I'm sorry. Yeah, Abby's flashbacks were well placed. I think there was like maybe one that kind of lasted a little bit too long, and that's the one where you with Owen.
That one kind of aquarium.
Yeah, that one kind of overstayed its welcome. And I understand they had to set it up for the plot, but it was kind of like it kind of overstayed its welcome a little bit. Well,
I think the flashbacks too, sometimes they're very bad about telling you what you're supposed to do compared to the actual game.
Yeah,
where the character's like, oh, let's like they're like Owen, the one with Owen in particular. When you get in the aquarium, there's a room that's like a circular room, and it has some stairs going up. But for whatever reason, I didn't see the stairs. And Owen doesn't, he just runs to the center and just sits in a chair, and like you can talk to him briefly, and then there's like a locked door to your right. And I remember when I was running through it, I was like, what the fuck? Like, what am I supposed to do here? I can't open this door. And then I was like, I looked around again and I was like, oh, there's stairs. I guess I have to go up there.
So, you know, my thing with that Owen flashback was the actual beginning part where Owen just goes underwater. And I'm like, where the fuck did he go?
Come on. That was so like, that was really unrealistic. Like, dude, like he couldn't have gone that far away that she wouldn't have known where he was. You know?
Exactly.
It was way too much distance for him to cover, and he was underwater like way too long too.
The entire time until you find him.
Dude, you can sit there in the thing before you jump as long as you want. The game doesn't force you to jump, so you could sit there for like 30 minutes and he's still underwater the whole time. It's like, So there's definitely some incongruent parts with that kind of stuff. That's something I think they definitely got to work on that, because I think they design their games assuming players are going to just go forward and do what you tell them to do, you know, and some players don't do that, you know, and it's going to create like really awkward situations within the game, you know, that don't make any sense. So,
another thing with this game, like I said, maybe because I played this game, I didn't play it in chunks. I played it in large chunks. I played Ellie's part in like chunks, like a normal person, but Abby's part, and then it jumps back to Ellie again, which is so the story kind of like, it's really weird how they do the I guess I don't know what you call it, the flow chart of the story, the flow of the story, and it's just weird because Abby's part, I really wasn't a big fan of. So by the time you get to Abby's part, you do all of Ellie before you even touch Allie. You do all of Ellie before you touch Abby's part.
Well, you start the game, the first 2 hours, you're switching back and forth between Ellie and Abby. Then you play Ellie for like 15 hours.
Yeah.
And then you play Abby for like 10 hours. And then you play Ellie again for the last like 3 hours.
Yeah.
So that's the structure.
Yeah. So that second part, that big chunk of 15 hours for Ellie, you've already mastered Ellie at this point, and you've maxed her out and everything of that nature. And now, granted, they do a good job at fast tracking Abby's part. Like, they kind of give you stuff just off the cuff. Like, they just give you stuff, and I kind of like that, because I was like, I'm used to Ellie having everything I needed. Like, you get some of your stuff is nerfed with Abby and everything of that nature, and everything of that nature.
It's like 2 different games.
Yeah,
you're playing 2 games basically. Like the one with Ellie, you're playing and you're leveling her up and getting her equipment better, and then all of a sudden you're playing as Abby and she has nothing. Like, she has no skills. Her weapons are not upgraded at all, so you're starting over from zero.
Exactly, and her animations are, and the way she does stealth kills are different. She can't use a shank. She can use a shank, but a limited amount of shanks. So, and you don't even get that until halfway into her adventure.
Well, so I'll stop you there real quick, because we are talking about gameplay. I do want to ask you about that, because that was really jarring for me at first with the early game for Ellie, is that she could stealth kill clickers with no need for shivs. And because that was not the case in the first game. And it's just, you don't need anything. You literally walk up to them, grab them, and kill them. And I found that really, because once I played Abby and you did need the shivs again to kill the clickers, I was like, what? The exactly. Yeah, it's like it throws you off, because I'm like, why did they do this? Like, first of all, we were talking about Ellie being like a string bean, basically. Like, it's weird that she's the one that can kill clickers without any need for like items, and Abby's like the one that's like super ripped and can probably box a clicker one-on-one, and she can't kill the thing without a shiv. It's like, it's super weird to me. But the other part about it is, I think like that design choice with Ellie like really kind of robs the clickers of some of their
urgency,
menace that they had in the first game, because in the first game, the clicker encounters in the first game were legitimately harrowing, because if you fucked up stealth and had to fight more than one at a time, you were probably going to die, because the second they touched you, you were dead. It was an insta-kill. And that's true in this game as well, but they just seem so much easier to kill between that stealth thing and even in general firing at them with weapons. They just don't seem as hardy as they were in the first game, and that might have been deliberate to make some of the other new infected types seem more menacing, I guess. But
yeah, they definitely nerfed them, because I wasn't scared of them. I was scared of the bloaters. Those are the ones I was like really scared of.
The shamblers, you mean?
Not the shamblers. Was it the shamblers or the bloaters?
The bloaters are the ones that throw fungus at you, and the shamblers are the ones that shamble towards you and then explode in a gaseous cloud of fungus.
Well, actually, both of them. I didn't like those because they didn't have an instant kill. Like, even if you had to legitimately stealth around them, or stealth kill everything else around them, and then kill them head on.
Yeah, the shamblers are the ones you were talking about then, because the bloaters, there's only like 2 or 3 bloater encounters in the game, and they are positioned as boss fights. They're not situations that you're in stealth. They're just attacking you immediately the second you run into them.
Yeah, it's the shamblers then.
The shamblers, there's many encounters with shamblers where you are positioned in stealth to start, and you have to kill everything else before you fight them, or you kill everything at once. Kind of thing. So yeah, I agree with you. I did find the shamblers, they are probably the most challenging enemy that the game has, in my opinion, because like you said, there's no way to kill them instantly. Like, you have to approach the entire encounter around them, whether it's you kill them quickly and try to get back into stealth, or you kill everything else around them and then deal with them last. They're not hard to kill. It's just that they're hardy enough that if you let them, like, if you go at them first, you're going to get overwhelmed and swarmed by the other enemies, because you can't kill them fast.
Because they can definitely they can stun lock you in the animation. That's happened to me, especially when there are like more than 2 of them, or when there are more than 1 of them in a room. They can stun lock you, and then other enemies can just come and kill you. Like the shambler clicker combination is a fucking You have to take the clickers out, because if you try to fight the shamblers, the clickers can come out of nowhere and kill you.
And they're instant kills.
And they're instant kills, yeah. So I will say one enemy, and I don't remember having this much of a problem with them in the first game. Maybe because I just don't remember. But the stalkers, fuck them.
Were they in the first game?
A lot of people say they were. I don't remember them.
Because I don't remember them, and maybe there's only a couple encounters with them in the first game. Because dude, honestly, they're littered throughout the second half of this game, particularly Abby's section of the game. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I actually found them to be hilariously easy, because most of the encounters they're the only thing you fight. So what I was doing was just running around trying to find them, and I just shotgun them in the face. Later on, there are some encounters where they are littered in with other infected types, and those are legitimately challenging encounters, because they will come up behind you when you're trying to fight something else or about to jump something else, and they will basically put you in a position where you have to kill them, and then everything knows you're there. They can be annoying in that way. But I found I found their AI funny, though, when it's just them, because they're trying to hide, and I'm just running around killing them all, one by one.
Yeah, and it's just I just didn't like their AI at all. I thought they were completely, honestly, I'm gonna be honest, and this may be a little bit much. I thought they were overpowered, because you can't hear them, and at all. Even if you try to turn up your audio,
dude, it's flipping the mechanic on its head, though. The audio mechanic. Because they're the one enemy type that you literally cannot hear, and using that doesn't help you in any way, really, unless you catch them moving between cover. That's the only time you'll see them on that mode. And like you said, even normally just listening for them through audio, you really cannot hear them very well, and if you can, it's not directionally useful. It doesn't really help you find them. That's why I said I was just kind of running around, because they'll come at you one at a time a lot of the times, and you can easily kill them, because they're a one shot with a shotgun or any of the heavier weapons.
I mean, they're easy in that aspect, but when it's just them, they're cool. But when they're, like you said, scattered with other enemies, I feel like they're overpowered in that situation, because there was situations, legitimate situations, where I think I spotted everything, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm about to go through, plan my route and everything where I'm about to go, and they just come out of nowhere and blindside me. And I'm like, how the fuck as a player was I supposed to prepare for that? And I'm thinking about that in harder playthroughs, how the fuck were you prepared for that shit at all? I'm trying to, I can't really name a specific area, but there are just certain sections of the game where they are scattered throughout the game, particularly in Ellie's part, her later parts, where you're trying to stealth through, and it's just they come out of nowhere and just blindside you, and you're like, what the fuck? And it kind of messes up my whole game, and I just thought they were completely out of place for the game, in my opinion. I didn't like them. I know they were trying to turn the mechanic on its head, and I appreciate that, but they could have done it way better. I don't know, make them breathe louder or something. You have to actually use your audio in your ear, your actual ears to hear them. I don't fucking know. It was just weird how they designed those characters, and then especially for Abby's part, when you're going through that hotel room and everything of that nature.
Yep. The skyscraper. Yeah,
when you're going through the skyscraper. Now, it was cool the first couple of times that happened to me where they just brought the wall. But then I spotted them, and I got them out the wall, and then their AI was just I don't know what to do. So he just hid behind the bed. He's looking at me, and I'm looking at him. He looking at me, I'm looking at him. I'm like, bro, I see you. I'm about to come kill you. So
come on out, little stalker buddy.
Exactly. So, I mean, hopefully in part 3, because I'm pretty sure there's gonna be a part 3. They made too much money off this game not for it to be a part 3. But anyway, they can improve their AI, because I did legitimately like them as a design. I thought their designs were really cool. They look like little nimble ninja type monsters. But I just didn't like playing against them at all. I thought they were just completely out of whack. in my opinion.
Yeah, that particular encounter you're talking about, that's the final encounter in the skyscraper before you get out, where there's a shambler down the hall, there's like 3 clickers on each side, and then there's the stalkers fucking hiding in the walls. That encounter was legitimately a pain in the ass. Did take me a few tries because, yeah, it's like, because the first time you walk by one, they just jump out the wall at you, and if you're not, if you didn't know they were there, it will alert every other infected in that area, and you're just fighting like 4 clickers and a fucking shambler and then like 2 stalkers all at once, and it's like impossible to deal with.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was definitely some annoyances with them, but I don't know. I didn't mind them as much. I didn't find them as threatening. I just didn't feel like there were that many encounters where they were like, I don't know. Maybe it's just the thing where I got lucky too. Then and they approached me early on, and I was able to kill them without alerting other enemies. That did happen a few times to me.
Okay. Yeah, that didn't happen at all for me.
Yeah, and I might have just gotten fortunate with it, or I like saw them early on in the encounter and just like shot an arrow in their head and killed them.
Okay.
Silently. Like it did happen to me a few times that way. So
maybe it's just me, because I think maybe I was just being like a terrible gamer when I was playing the game. Were there certain sections of the game, as far as level design, where like you legitimately didn't know there was an entire different section of that level? Like, for instance, when you're Abby, right? And
yeah,
you what's the guy's name? I'm gonna call him Miguel, but his name's not Miguel. Manny. Yeah, because he looks like my friend Miguel in real life. Yeah, he looks exactly like Miguel in real life. But anyway, shout out to Miguel if you're listening. But Manny, he lets you go, and then you pass the scars in that first area, like fighting by that school bus, and then you go inside that building, and then there's another side of that building, like right before you meet the Hammer Lady, and there's another side of that building. Like, I didn't know for the longest. I was like, oh, there's another section, because I scouted the entire area, and then I killed everyone, and then I'm just like running around like scavenging stuff, and then like I got alerted by the enemy that's on the other side of the building that you had to jump over to, and I'm like, wait, what? I didn't get any indication that was another side of the building.
What part of the game is this?
This is right after.
Is this day 1 of Abby?
I think it says day 1 of Abby. The sun didn't set yet. Is
this while Manny and Mel are still with you, or after?
No, this is after. This is when Manny.
You go on your own.
You go on your own. So you go on your own, and you go through the buildings and everything of that nature outside, and then you have to fight these. You get to this part of the area where the scars are at that memorial area.
Yeah, and you where the truck is, and there's like a whole shitload of like notes.
Exactly.
Hang to it or whatever.
Yeah, either you stealth kill them or you pass them. You go inside the building that leads you to the other area, the last part of that day, I suppose, or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's a building that's kind of like split in half, and you legitimately have to have it. It's like a jump animation that you have to do to get to the other side of the building and crawl down, and then that's where you meet that Hammer Lady that knocks you out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, dude. Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. Okay. I
thought that was weird. I didn't, and it only happened like maybe twice to me with a couple of levels. I can't remember the other instance, but that instance right there, I was like, oh, okay.
Well, that brings us to a good point, I guess, to talk about is like the environment design. I think this game is literally at the limit of how large I think environments should be in these kind of games. Yeah. Like, they literally went as far as I think you can reasonably go, because there are legitimately gigantic areas in this game that is like, it's like almost a chore to like go through and scavenge, you know?
Yeah.
I do think there are sections that are just too big in this game. Like I didn't love that about the environment design after a while. Like, early on it was kind of cool, but eventually this game is so long too. Like, I think my clock was 29 hours when I finished it. Is like, the game's so long, it's just some of the environments eventually just get so tedious to go through, particularly when you have like 5 houses on a fucking street you have to go into. And like, it's just like, it's like, man, I get it. It wants to be realistic, but at a certain point, like I don't want to scavenge anymore. Like I want to play.
Yeah, exactly.
And the game definitely, like, I'm thinking about Hillcrest in particular is one that was like that. When you're trying to get to Jesse and you think you're going to get to Tommy, but you end up running into Jesse. Like, there's like 3 different neighborhoods that you run around in Hillcrest. And they're fucking huge. Like, you can go in every building. Like, it's insane, and it's awesome. It's really cool. Like, but at the same time, it took me like 30 minutes to an hour to go through all those buildings.
Yeah, Justin's not exaggerating. Like, there will be, I don't know, in real life, have you ever seen like the Empire State Building in real life, or a really tall building? You're like, okay, let's go towards that building. Obviously, that building's a while away to walk towards, right?
Yeah.
The game would do that. This game would do that. Like, hey, let's go towards that Ferris wheel. And the Ferris wheel is like in the distance. And you're like,
it's like 4 hours away. It's like takes you legitimately how long it would take you in real life.
Exactly. And it feels like 4 hours of gameplay to get to that Ferris wheel, because you go through different encounters, different cutscenes, and you're like, finally, I'm at the fucking Ferris wheel.
Well, the fucking Ferris wheel can suck a dick. How many characters use that as their benchmark? Because I'm thinking about day 1 with Abby. Like, the moment you leave Manny to get to the aquarium, the game literally has to have you get captured because you're so far fucking away. Like, they had to insert a cutscene to transport you closer to it because that's how far away it was. Like, it is like, it literally, that was a moment in the game where I was like, yeah, I knew this was going to happen because I have been walking towards this Ferris wheel for 3 goddamn hours, and I'm like, I feel like I'm 4 hours away from it, and it's like, man, you got to do something to get me closer. And that's what ended up happening. It's like, cause it's unreasonable at a certain point. Like, it's like almost annoying,
Yeah.
Because it's like cool. The game gives you an objective to go towards, but it's like, I think that's the most common criticism of the game, besides the Abby stuff and Joel's death, is the length of the game, and that is because of how large these environments are. I think they definitely could have cut some things out in order to bring the playtime, I think, down to a more reasonable level. I think if this game was 20 hours, it would feel a little bit better for people.
Yeah.
It would have for me, I think. As much as I like it, I'm just thinking about some sections, like Abby's sections, dude.
Oh my god, bro.
Let's talk. Okay, I guess let's move towards.
You want to get towards the story part, so we can talk about that.
Get towards the game structure. We've already touched on it a little bit, but I want to talk about specifically, like, do you think they structured this game the right way, or should they have done something different, such as what they did in the beginning of the game, the first 2 hours of the game, where you you get to Seattle as Ellie and you play her day 1, and then you play Abby's day 1, and then you play Ellie's day 2, and then Abby's day 2.
So I thought about
that. Would that have worked better for you?
No, I thought about that, and I'm like, it would have made sense game design wise, but as a player, that would have annoyed the fuck out of me. Like, I don't want to do that shit. So what they should have done is they should have done the Resident Evil 2, or I call it the Sonic Adventure 2 or Resident Evil 2 effect, whereas you play 2 different characters, you pick them at the menu, you can play as either one, and you play through their entire campaign. You will encounter the other character, like for instance, Resident Evil, you play as Claire or Leon. You play through the entire thing as Claire. In certain parts, you encounter Leon where they talk like, okay, well, I'm going to go to this side of the station and do this while you do this over here. Or there's some obstacle, the characters get separated again, and she calls to Leon, he calls back, well, I'm going to meet you over here, or something like that. They could have done that with this game. Particularly, they could have done that, because I did not like the way they structured Ellie and Abby. Like, especially the last 4 hours of the game, it's so fucking annoying. Like,
I think what you're saying makes sense, because I think this is a lot of people's problem with the game, is that you are forced to play as Abby, and to get to the end of the game, you have to play this 10-hour campaign as Abby. And I do agree with you, because I just think this game like screams for that kind of design, honestly, or more what I was saying. I would have been okay with what I was saying too, But I think the error they made is that they showed way too much at the end of Ellie's campaign,
Yes. Yeah.
Because they leave you on a cliffhanger where Abby is confronting Ellie after Ellie has killed Owen and Mel, and you spend Abby's whole game knowing that's where it's going. It's like it's like a lot of Abby's. I understand now what Skill Up was saying in his review that there's it feels like a part of the game is like a 10-hour side quest. He was talking about Abby's section of the game.
Yes.
Because when you think about the structure of it, it has nothing to do with the larger plot. Like most of her stuff is completely irrelevant to the main game's plot.
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
It's really like that is the part that puzzles me. As much as I like the individual beats a lot and I like the characters she meets and the interactions she has with those characters and the moments she has, I do think that this was a big failure of the game's story for Abby, is that it was not tied into Ellie's story very well, and it should have been, because I was thinking about, I want to talk about the hospital scene with her, or the hospital section with her more in depth, but I'm going to touch on it here briefly because I thought that entire section we were going to see through like a crack in the wall or a hole in the floor that like Ellie was like killing Nora and Abby couldn't do anything about it, for whatever reason. She could like hear them talking and she could hear Ellie like hitting her with the fucking pipe or whatever, but she couldn't do anything about it. Like maybe she was fighting infected or something, something like that. But she could hear the exchange happening and she knew it was happening. Like I thought that was going to happen the whole time and it didn't. And I was like, well, shit, like we've gone through 2 days now and there's been literally no crossover between these two characters, and it's like, that kind of sucks. It's like, it's not, Abby's having a completely different story separate from the story Ellie's having up until the very end of it, and it's like,
you hit the nail on the head. No, you hit the nail on the head. It's like when I was playing, it felt like a 10-hour side quest. I felt like they could have done what Sonic Adventure 2 did, right? When you play as Shadow, the dialogue is different when you meet Sonic. His dialogue is completely different. To you meet in the same encounter, right? So like this is one part of Sonic Adventure 2 where you guys meet in the jungle, and Shadow's I think his dialogue is completely different to when you meet Sonic as Shadow or you meet Shadow as Sonic. It's just like the perspective is different. It's the same encounter, but the perspective of how they're hearing things is different. And I don't know if they did that on purpose, but they could have done that with this game and it would have been like really fucking cool. Cause that could have been really cool, right? You see Nora getting the shit beat out of her and you can't do anything because you're like underground or you're like in the vent somewhere or some shit like that. You just can't get to her. Or other characters or something of that nature. Like it just would have been really cool if I had a totally different, like at the menu, I press new game. It's like play as Abby or play as Ellie.
And that would have I feel like that would have blown people's minds, right?
Yeah.
The way, if they had done it that way versus the way they ended up doing it. Obviously, I do want to mention the leaks did have an impact on this as well because
okay.
I did look this up before we're talking here because I wanted to know for sure. So the things that were leaked before the game came out, Joel getting killed by Abby.
So they did show that?
Yeah, that was a part of the leaks. The fact that you play as Abby for like 10 hours was leaked. That was a huge part of the game. And I think I don't think the ending was leaked, but I think the conclusion of the first part, that the end of day 3, that was leaked as well. That like Jesse died and Tommy got his leg shot and all that. I think that was leaked as well.
Okay.
So I think that definitely has an impact here, I think, on the way people perceive this game. I think if that hadn't been leaked, it might be a little bit less vitriolic, but I still think there would be a lot of vitriol because of the way they structured the story in the game. I just think, the way you're saying it like makes a lot more sense to me. Or even if you set it up like that, but you didn't allow people to play as Abby first, you just allowed them to play as Ellie, and then you had to unlock Abby, but it's like it would still be a choice, right?
Yeah, exactly.
To play as her. And maybe that's what they were. Maybe they weren't going for that though. Like they clearly, I feel like they kind of clearly weren't. They really wanted to force people to play as Abby. And that is the part that's really divisive about this game, is a lot of people didn't want to play as her for various reasons, whether it's playing Joel's killer, they didn't like the character, period. They just felt like they just didn't feel like it was a good character to play, or they didn't like her story either. Like, I think any of those things are like legitimate reasons to not have liked that portion of the game. I look back on it more. I am disappointed there wasn't more crossover, but I actually like looking back on her sections of the game. A lot of the amazing set pieces in the game are in Abby's section of the story. It's kind of weird and like annoying almost that that's the case, because I like the section from when you're on the sky bridge and you fall into the pool all the way through basically the end of Abby's story, I feel like is fucking nonstop, like high level action, in my opinion. Because
you're right, but it also feels like a tedious side thing. No, you know what? That doesn't feel like a tedious side thing. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm thinking about the skyscraper. That part of the game definitely
was cool, in my opinion.
I thought that was really cool. I did think it was a little long in the tooth, because then you go into a section in the hospital that I think these two sections of the game are the best horror moments in the game. The skyscraper and then the hospital as Abby, like going underneath the hospital. I think those are the best like horror moments in the game for sure. Because the skyscraper kind of gets you through this whole section. It's really dark. It's all clickers and infected, and there's a lot of encounters in here. And you're in like really broken down areas that you can fall out of and like, you know, get cornered in easily. And then you're like, you get out of it and you're like, oh, you think you get a breather, but no, you end up going into the hospital, and it's like this really dark section. There's no one there. You don't run into infected basically for almost the duration of it. It's a really, really, I thought this was a really well done like horror moment, because it just kind of like builds this tension. You know, you're going to fight something soon. Like in there, like you're not going to get out of here without fighting clickers or infected or something. And eventually you get to a point where there's clickers behind some doors that you can't get into, that you have to like turn a generator on in order to open the doors. And I thought that was really cool, because you can hear them and you can see them through the hearing mode, you know?
Yeah.
And I thought that was really cool. It's like this sense of foreboding. It's like, oh, when I turn this generator on, I'm going to have to fight these clickers, which is exactly what happens. But it leads into the main, like basically the only real boss fight in the game that is just fucking, it's like straight out of Resident Evil, it feels like.
That moment felt like a legitimate Resident Evil moment, and I appreciated it a lot. Whoever did that moment or directed that, they were definitely taking Resident Evil vibes, because that's exactly how I felt. Well,
because dude, you go through the area first and you can't open that door that it's behind, and you hear it though. You hear this like guttural noise, and Abby's like, what the fuck is that? And she's like legitimately scared, you know? Like legitimately frightened. And then you keep going in and you turn the generator on, you fight a few clickers, but then you see the blood trail coming out of that room into the garage, you know, that you have to go into. And she's like, what the fuck? And it's just like really, I thought it was really well done.
It is. And the reason why it's really well done is because it's so far out of the realm of reality of this of that world that they established. We haven't seen anything like that mutate, like a fucking Resident Evil type monster like that. Like that was a legitimate Resident Evil type monster that probably realistically wouldn't have happened. But they went there and they were like, this thing has been incubating forever. This is the first site.
25 years,
25 years. And this thing has been incubating, and this is what we got. And
I wouldn't put it outside the realm of possibility, honestly.
Yeah, but exactly. But that's why I'm saying, like, it's kind of weird though, because it's like it's outside the realm of possibility. But you think about it, it's like actually it's been 25 years. You think about it, so this is actually that can happen within a mutation like this. This virus. So I thought it was really cool. That moment is what I talked about, and like it was like a once in a lifetime moment. It didn't happen often. It didn't happen at all, except for when Abby's moment. Even if they had done it twice, I wouldn't have minded. It was a different design monster or something like that. But I don't know if you guys listen to the older podcast, but that's what I kind of wanted from a Division, right? That one moment. I want to be in the sewer somewhere when I'm playing Division, and the virus just mutates some kind of fucking alligator that was left over from somebody who had a pet. You know, like somebody had a pet alligator somewhere, and it fucking mutated, and we have to fight that thing. Like, and it's not like it's like a oh shit moment. But for the rest of the game, now it's never going to happen again in the division. But for the rest of the game, you're like on edge because like, man, I might run into a fucking giant alligator again or something like that. One of those. Yeah. So I thought they did this in Last of Us 2. I thought that was like a really fucking cool moment because now when I was running through other areas or when I'm looking at buildings that's just boarded up, I'm like, man, what
the fuck is in there?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, a hospital, ground zero of the infection, makes sense that something that horrible would be there. So it almost makes you think like there can't be anything worse than that, you know? But it was like such a cool moment because you can run around the garage and you can't find it, but you see this blood trail. And like then you go into the ambulance and then all of a sudden it's just fucking behind you, chasing you. And the thing's just ripping walls apart and is like, the strength of this thing is like overwhelming, you know, like if it gets a hold of Abby, she's fucking dead, you know? And she's just like pure adrenaline fear. Like it's so good. Like, cause she's such like a tough guy character for the most part. And it's like really cool to see that like broken by this thing is that it's just pure fear, you know? Cause I mean, anybody would just lose their minds if they saw something like that, you know, but it was also cool though, that you have to fight it, you know, it's like, and it's a really hard encounter. Like it's not an easy fight, you know. You have to exhaust a lot of your equipment and supplies, you know, in order to kill it. So I really like that section of the game. I thought it was the most successful horror section in the series. Personally, I thought it was better than anything in the first game too.
No, you're right. You're right. That part legitimately made me terrified to live in the world. Like the world was okay. It wasn't like the best world to live in. Like I wouldn't want to fucking live in this world, but. Like that was like fuck this. Like I don't want to deal with any of that shit. Right.
And think about that. She like has to carry that with her now, like forever.
And
like then, she knows she fought something like that, and those things exist possibly elsewhere. You know.
But the crazy part about that is at the end, she's like, "No one will fucking believe what I just fought." And that's true. Like if you tell somebody like I went to the bottom of the hospital and fought a 3-headed monster with a little side character monster that jumped out of its
ripped off of it. Yeah. Oh my god, dude. Yeah.
And then you're just like, yeah, how did you survive that? And you're just like, bro, I was just running around and I killed it.
Yeah, because there was a moment for me I had to run away from it and fully heal. Like I was about to die. I had like a little tiny sliver of health, and I was like, my heart was pumping, dude. I was like, oh my god, am I gonna get this heal off? Because I see it down the hall like rumbling towards me while I'm trying to use the med kit, and I'm like, fuck. You know, and it's like I got it off and killed it, but it was like it was a really good fight too. On top of it, because the monster just like it had good. I don't know. I felt like it had good mechanics, you know, because you could dodge its attacks, but you still had to shoot it to kill it. Like it was pretty nice.
It was a really good design monster, and then I do like. So another part of that, as a character, how they made that scene. You fight this big monster, and then we talked about the little side monster that breaks off of it. You feel so empowered as a character, as a player, that this little side monster doesn't even fucking phase you. And they make you feel like that throughout the game because the monster is running from you after you kill the big monster. And it's like, that's such an empowering moment for not only you, but for Abby as well. So you guys both feel the adrenaline rush, and then your adrenaline is slowly coming down, and then this monster just seeing you kill like the boss monsters, and it's constantly running from you. So it just felt like as a player, you just felt like nothing can fuck with you now. But then you get out into the real world and you're like, fuck, and no one knew what the fuck just happened to me. Like,
Lev wouldn't even believe it.
Exactly.
But dude, wouldn't that have been a great moment though? Right after you kill the little one, for her to hear Nora and Ellie's conversation.
Yes, that would have been cool.
Dude, that would have been a great way to end that section, right? And I'm thinking about the first day. I was so disappointed in the first day that she didn't go to that school that Jordan got killed in, and or whoever that guy's name was, I forget. And she didn't go to the TV station and see where like Leah died. Like it would have been cool if you like went to those areas after Ellie had been there, you know?
But see, people would have accused them of backtracking or trying to save.
But the environment would have been different, and you would have been in different circumstances, you know, like fighting the scars instead of the wolves or something like that, you know?
Yeah, you're right.
I don't know. I just felt like there were obvious points where they could have like inserted that, I guess, but they went in a different direction with that. So it's like I do think that her section of the game is a little weird because Ellie's section is long. It's like 15 hours, and it's not. It just doesn't. You don't get a resolution for another 10 hours. You know. And I will say that resolution is satisfying. At least it was for me. I mean, do we want to talk about that now? I guess the end point of the Seattle portion.
Well, do we want to just talk about the story as a whole?
Okay, yeah. I mean, do you want to go through piece by piece, or do you want to talk about? You want to keep jumping around? How do you want to do this?
I guess we can just do like piece by piece and try to tackle everything.
Well, let's start at the beginning then. So you start in Jackson, and this section of the game was pretty like you're jumping between Abby and Ellie. Ellie's gameplay, and I thought Ellie's gameplay here was actually pretty fun. I liked the interactions with Dina. I thought they were very like it was cute. They were like kind of feeling each other out, and then you end up in the marijuana lab, and they kind of they have a sexual encounter in there. And I thought it was. I personally thought this whole part was pretty well done. Like I like people. A lot of people had issues with this, that they were like shoehorning in marijuana and like making a statement about that.
No.
It's like
first of all, in Seattle, so or no, it was Jackson. I'm sorry,
Jackson,
they were in Jackson. Yeah. Okay, so even still though, like it was funny to me. It wasn't like shoehorned in, and then. A lot of people were saying that the fucking Dina and Abby relationship was shoehorned in, and from the beginning, I didn't feel like that. I felt like they were together, but they still didn't know each other like that. Like they knew they liked each other, but they were like, we kissed.
And the later parts of this game prove what you're saying. Like the further into the game you go, the more obvious it is that these two had a thing for each other for a while. Yeah. Ellie, like if you read Ellie's journal, which I love the journal in this game. If you read Ellie's journal in various sections of the game and some of the flashbacks and stuff, you can see entries about Dina. Like, and she's like, "Oh man, I know she's with Jesse, but it's like, she did this with me today, and does that mean something? It's like, oh, I'm so stupid. It's shit like that. That like a teenager would do." And so it's all in there. The context is in there, and even at the beginning, though, I think they did a good job of making it like. It felt organic, because Dina had kissed her the night before at the party,
exactly,
and they had already set that up. So clearly, it's not really. I don't feel like it's justified.
I think people are just upset that they're lesbians. I think people are really upset.
That's all I think it is too.
That Ellie turned out to be a lesbian, even though in the first game she already gave hints of like wanting to come out and everything of that nature.
Well, they had the Left Behind DLC, which literally confirmed that she was a lesbian. Like, it's like it's a known thing. This is part of her character. So I think you're right. It's literally just a pedantic like, oh, she's a lesbian, I hate lesbians kind of thing. It's like
that's the only thing I could think of, because honestly, the story was these characters were complex. Like I joked about it on the stream, like I'm watching a really well done CW show, and like it was like a really well dramatized show, because you got this love triangle right between Jesse, Dina, and Ellie, and then later on in the game, well, we can get to that I guess a little bit like 2 minutes later, but later on in the game we find out that Dina's pregnant, and it's still like a huge triangle with that, like not only between Dina and you, but this baby, and she fucking hid it from you throughout the entire adventure. I was pissed. Like I was in Ellie's shoes. I'm like,
Ellie was too. Yeah,
Ellie was pissed, and I'm like, I feel Ellie. Like you went on this adventure with me, and you're pregnant. Like I wouldn't have wanted you to come with me if I hadn't known you were pregnant. Like stay at your ass at home. So I don't know. It was. And even after she was pregnant, she was still holding her own. So it was like, it was kind of breaking barriers in that aspect, I guess they were trying to show.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you go through that section, and when you're doing a horseback riding, they're talking to each other and they're filling each other out. And when you get to this part of Seattle where that kind of pseudo open world section of Seattle, I thought their dialogue was just like, that was God of War level dialogue, in my opinion.
Yes.
And that dialogue actually carried that area, because without that area would have been kind of boring. Well, it would have been boring as fuck.
It would have been, yeah.
But just them bouncing off each other and taking quips about, the environment and, the quarantine zones and everything of that nature. It just gave a lot of insight, because even if you didn't play the last game, Ellie talking to you about how they were called quarantine zones, right? Or
yes, QZs.
Yeah, the QZs. she was talking about how terrible they were, and because Dina I think she'd never been to a QZ before. She was just on the run.
Right. She said she was from New Mexico, and they were never in a QZ.
Okay, yeah. So this game was kind of set up for people who never really played the last game. Because honestly, you can not play the last game, and I feel like you will still get the same effect. Honestly, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, I think Joel's death would be the only thing that wouldn't.
Yeah, that probably wouldn't resonate with you as much. Yeah. But as far as these characters, I did understand why they killed Joel early, because I feel like that one point we just made just right there, just in case the characters didn't resonate with Joel right off the bat, that was for us. That was for the people who played The Last of Us 1. The rest of the game is for people who did not play The Last of Us 1. Like, that's how you had to approach this game, in my opinion. It's like Last of Us 1 had an added bonus to knowing what happened, but you didn't need to know what happened. Because Abby's part of the game, that last part of the game where she's having these flashbacks, and I'm jumping around. I don't mean to jump around like that. But
it's okay. Organic conversation, man, wherever it goes.
So Abby has her flashbacks to the end part of The Last of Us 1, where she's coming at the end of the results of The Last of Us 1. So in The Last of Us 1, obviously Joel goes on a fucking rampage and kills everyone in the hospital. Abby sees her, including the doctor, and the doctor just so happened to be Abby's father. So she's coming at the tail end of that, where she sees her father dead on the ground. So now we know, at the beginning of the game, we just see Abby. We go through Ellie's section of the game, and then it flashes over to Abby's side, and we're playing as this jacked woman, and we're like, okay, who the fuck is she? Like, we don't know who she really is. All that we know is she keeps referring to him. The players are guessing, like, I was like, it has to be Joel, and lo and behold, it was Joel. And then she kills him. She kills him right in front of Ellie. And we don't know why. We just know that they fucking hate Joel. Like, and then it comes to find out later throughout the game that these were, ex-members of the Fireflies, and they joined the WLF and everything of that nature. And they went on this adventure actually looking for Joel. It was a small section of them, actually. Yeah,
it was like an execution squad.
That went to go look for him, and they killed him, and then they did their job and then went back. And you can tell that none of the other WLFs knew about it at all. Like, it was just that small section. Like, I guess
Isaac was the only one who knew, because Abby asked him if they could go. Yeah,
and I got the sense that your squad that you were with, Abby's squad, was like the elite people. Like, everyone they were kind of higher up.
Yeah, they kind of felt that way.
Yeah, so and then from that point on, you are on a revenge story. Like, Ellie is trying to find Abby, and she's killing everyone in her path to get to it. But it's not done corny. It's just like, the story is really well played out, the way everything you discover everything, all the way, because there's really not much to say. I mean, it's just like little tidbits here and there. You discover Dina's pregnant. You meet up with Jesse. You have a couple of flashback scenes. Throughout that, also, this is one part I didn't think the people understood. Joel is an anti-hero. He's not the hero of the story. He never was a hero. He's a fucking terrible character. Yeah. I mean, I love the character, but he's a terrible character as far as, like,
he's a bad person.
Yeah, exactly.
And okay. All right. We're getting into, like, the overarching themes of both games, because Joel's a bad person, and that's clear, I think, even through the first game. That's really clear. Actually, it's even more clear in the first game than this game, because he talks about him, like, Tommy and him talk about the fact that they did some horrible, heinous shit for like 15 years after the apocalypse happened, just to survive, like, they were running with, like, bandit crews that were, like, ambushing innocent people and shit. Like, they were not good people, and Tommy, like, committed to redeeming himself in Jackson, I think. And Joel, on the other hand, didn't really commit to that until he met Ellie, really. And it was honestly deep into The Last of Us that he really committed to that,
Yeah.
And honestly, he did some bad shit. And in the first game, he did bad shit. Killing all those Fireflies was not a good act. Like, that was not something that a good person would have done. It's like, yes, he did it to save his quote daughter, and I'm sure a lot of parents would do the same thing in that situation, but that doesn't mean it was a good, like, virtuously good act.
Exactly.
And that a lot of this game is kind of bludgeoning you with that from Abby's perspective. But the thing is with that is that, like, him killing that doctor, and Neil has, like, confirmed this, is like that basically, like, doomed humanity. Like, that was like that act, him killing that doctor, basically guaranteed this virus was not going to get a vaccine, at least not in the immediate future, because that guy knew how to use old world technology, and he had the knowledge to create a vaccine. There aren't very many people like that left in this world, and honestly, even if there are, they're probably going to be hard to find, and getting them to actually try and do it is another question, because he said that it would kill Ellie to do it. So it's like, that's another moral quandary that another doctor might have an issue with. So it's like Joel doing that is like, it's bad. He's dooming humanity to the future, to this future that they're living in, Yeah. And that is why Ellie's so pissed at him when she finds out, because she realizes the implications of what he did, like, she knows that, like, because Joel makes up this bullshit story about how, there's plenty of people that are immune, it'll be fine, and it's like, like, he completely, like, bald-faced lied to her face, and that's one reason she was pissed. But the other reason is because she understands the implications of him doing that. Like, she's fucked over the human race to save her, and that fucking that's a huge weight to have on you.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's what destroys their relationship for like 2 years, because of that, because she can't reconcile that. Like, she can't reconcile his actions with the way she feels, about what he did.
Exactly.
And so, but that's the thing. The first game for Joel was kind of his redemption arc, was an attempt for him to have redemption arc.
And he failed. He completely failed at it, in my opinion.
He did fail at it. And then in this game, Abby has a similar arc after she gets her vengeance. She has a similar arc with Lev and Yara, or Kara. I can never remember that.
Yara.
Okay.
Yeah.
She has a similar arc with Lev and Yara, and she also largely fails at it. Like Yara ends up dead, and Lev, she, like, basically leads into a fucking prison camp in Santa Barbara, and they're, like, stuck there for months apparently, and almost dead. And Ellie almost kills Lev too. So it's like, she didn't do a great job either. She, like, that's the story. That's her side of the story. She's past the point Ellie is, where she got her revenge and she's trying to live her life after that, and she can't do it. It's hard. Like, that's what her having those nightmares is. Exactly.
So let's do a quick overview of the story real quick, so, like, people can understand. So you play as Ellie. Ellie's on the redemption arc. She sees Joel gets killed in front of her, and she's on this revenge trail. The trail leads her all the way back, or not all the way back, but to the theater. And where the story cuts off into Abby's part is, Ellie runs to her room. She hears some gunshots or some tussling or whatever.
Yeah.
She runs to the room and she sees Abby standing over Tommy, because Tommy is also on this revenge trail as well.
He went first.
Yeah. He said he wasn't going to go, but he ended up going like 2 or 3 days earlier before.
He was trying to trick them into not going.
Exactly. So you're kind of doing like a revenge / I gotta find Tommy type deal. So you do all that and you kill some of the main Fireflies along the way. Nora, I can't remember the other 2 people's names.
So you only kill Jordan. You kill Jordan and Nora. Leah's already dead.
Yeah.
Leah's already dead because the scars killed her. And then, actually, she kills Owen and Mel as well. But Manny gets killed by Tommy later on in Abby's story.
Yeah.
And then I think that's it. That's all of them, isn't it?
Yeah, that is. Because Manny gets killed by Tommy. He gets sniped in the head. So, so this is where, and then Abby's part starts. And yeah, Abby's felt like a 10-hour side quest because I desperately wanted to get back to that moment. Like,
yeah, right.
That moment was so powerful for me, in my opinion. Because you see how desperate Ellie is to save Tommy, and then you see how mad Abby is. And then you got this like mysterious little boy behind them. It's like, what's going on? And it just took so long to get back to that moment with Abby. So with Abby, you start out as a flashback scene, breaking down the doctor and who was her father and how he values life and everything. Like you can tell the guy was actually a good guy. Like this was a legitimate good guy who was trying to heal humanity. And Owen is a good guy, or he doesn't want to. You get the sense that he doesn't really want to kill a lot of people. So I mean, you can explain Abby's part because her part's a little bit fuzzy to me because I really was just trying to blast her apart.
Well, yeah. So let me go back to Jackson, right? So end of the Jackson section, Abby kills Joel, right?
Yep.
And I do want to talk about this briefly, actually. So Abby runs into a horde outside of Jackson and just has to run, basically. And she conveniently runs into Joel and Tommy, who save her. And then they run together away from the horde on horseback to the place that Abby's group is in. And this is a part I think a lot of people have problems with the game. They don't believe Joel would let himself get into this situation, but we'll get into that in a second. Let me finish explaining it, I guess. Okay. And then they run into the group. They get off their horses. They get their horses situated, and they're like talking. And Tommy's being a little bit too loose-lipped with where they're from and who they are and everything. And Joel says his name, and then everyone in the room is like, "Oh fuck!"
Yeah, you could tell the mood of the room just like.
And he knew it. He immediately comments on it. He's like, "Wait a second, you guys are acting like you know us, Yeah. And well, lo and behold, they do. Abby shoots Joel in the leg with a shotgun, blows his fucking leg out, and then proceeds to torture him and beat him in the head with a golf club. And then on Ellie's side, you run in at the very end, right before she's about to do the final blow, and she sees Joel get killed. Which is what shoots the journey off. But I want to go back to Joel's part about running into her and then going with her and then giving his name out. And a lot of people have issues with this because they look at Joel as like a really paranoid survivalist, and he is. Like that's what he was in the first game, right?
Yeah.
And I understand where people are coming from, but I will say Neil did comment on this. He said that it's been 4 years since he's been out in the wild. Like he's been living in Jackson for 4 years. Like this comfortable.
He lost all those. He didn't lose all those qualities, but he
lost
slipped
a little
up.
bit of his edge, though.
Yeah.
Right. And that kind of made him maybe a little bit more trusting. Being with Tommy might have made him a little bit more trusting too, feeling more comfortable there. And I think it makes sense personally. I don't have a problem with this. I think it is a little convenient that she just runs into them. That definitely is a moment of convenience, but this game has a lot of those, which we'll talk about later. Convenient moments to move the plot forward. That's the first one that I can think of. She just conveniently runs into them, but the game acknowledges it though. She because when she shows up with Owen, and Owen's like, "Who the fuck are these people?" And she's like, "You know how lucky you are to be back here," and she's like, "You have no fucking idea how lucky I am." She literally says that because she's got Joel here with them. I don't think it's poor storytelling necessarily. It's not implausible, right? They're out on patrol and she's running around trying to get to the outpost that they're stationed at. It kind of sort of makes sense. It just was convenient that they happened to be at the station she was trying to get to, because she went there with the intent of
killing him,
torturing whoever was there into telling them where Joel was, and it just happened to be that Joel and Tommy were actually there, so I don't think it's that bad.
So one part I had immediate issues with is they let Ellie go, and then throughout Abby's story, I saw that these people weren't cold-hearted killers. Like they're just regular people, just so happened to be on the other side of the faction, and they were really pissed at Joel. They didn't really care about Abby or Ellie. They were just really pissed at Joel for literally ruining the world. Like not only did you kill her father, but our only fighting chance of curing this disease.
Well, I told you, I think it might have been on stream that, I thought they were going to end up being justified. And I mean, they kind of are,
Yeah.
Like their actions are kind of justified. Like not only did he kill her dad, but also the hope of humanity. He robbed humanity of its hope,
Yeah. And, so because they kind of set the game up to where these people are just fucking terrible, right? And that was my first immediate thought too. Like, why didn't they just kill Ellie right then and there, and we wouldn't have had this entire adventure? But like we both said, these are human beings still, and they're not in the business of like just randomly killing people. The only people they really fucking hate are Scars, and
well, Abby's the one who stops them because I think Manny wanted to kill her, or it might have been Jordan. I don't remember. One of them wanted to kill Ellie.
It was Jordan.
And Abby's the one who's like, no, we're done, we're leaving. Like she literally wanted to kill Joel. That was it. Like it wasn't a situation like what Ellie did where she wanted to kill anyone in their way. It was, we wanted to kill this one guy. We got him. We're out of here. Like that's it. Like she wanted to end it there. So, I think it does make sense from her perspective because she probably didn't think they would follow, you know? And also, how would they even know where they're from? I don't even remember how that detail comes about, actually.
Well, because Tommy remembers that they have a WLF patch on them, and he, I guess he, you know, through traders and everything like that, discovered that, you know, they're actually in Washington. That's where WLF stands for, Washington something front, liberation front. So he, you know, makes his plans to go out there or whatever. I didn't personally have a problem with that. Obviously if they killed her, the game wouldn't happen anyway, so you know she wasn't going to die the whole time. But their reasoning for not killing her makes sense too, because they didn't kill Tommy either, and I thought they did it first and they didn't. So I was like, oh, okay. So they only killed Joel. They didn't kill anyone else. Yeah, because he was the main person that killed everybody.
Yeah, they weren't like bloodthirsty. They didn't want to destroy the entirety of Jackson, you know, because Joel lived there. Like they weren't really like that. And that's the funny part, is Ellie kind of was like, she would have killed every wolf imaginable to get to Abby, you know. But maybe Abby would have done the same thing if it was reversed, though, if like people from Jackson were trying to protect Joel or whatever. Yeah, like it may have turned out that way, so who knows. But so after that, you know, you go to Seattle, and Ellie's portion of the story is actually really straightforward for the most part. The first day is them trying to get to one of the people. They run into Jordan. They go to this hotel that Tommy like fucked up. He like killed like everyone there and tortured a bunch of wolves. And then they get captured by some wolves and end up getting away and figuring out where Leah is. And they kill Jordan while they were captured in the school. And they go to this TV station to find she's already dead. The Scars had killed her. And then they kind of just run after that, and they end up underground. And this section of the game is actually really cool too. I thought the under the tunnels and whatnot was a pretty nice section. But then they end up in the theater, and Dina says she's pregnant or whatever. Ellie gets pissed, goes to sleep, wakes up, and then she hears that Dina tells her that somebody's in Hillcrest fighting or whatever, and they think it's Tommy. She goes, it's not Tommy, it's actually Jesse, and then she brings Jesse back, and then she leaves during the night to just go to the hospital because she hears something over the... I think Dina tells her again that somebody's at the hospital, and she just leaves without Jesse, which... so this is the first portion of like decision-making that Ellie does that I think is questionable. The fact that she just immediately goes, like, I feel like this is her first stupid decision. Is like, why would you, like, first of all, you're probably tired of shit. You just like spent like hours like trying to get to Hillcrest and then fighting out of there with Jesse and then getting back to the theater. He's exhausted. He goes to sleep, and you're just like, fuck it, I'm just going by myself, you know? I don't know. How did you feel about that? Did that like hit with you, or was it just like, am I nitpicking?
It wasn't the oh shit moment. I mean, it wasn't like a this is wildly absurd moment. I felt like she left because she left in the night because she wanted Jesse to stay back with Dina because she's pregnant.
Yeah,
she just
that's
didn't
how I
tell
took
him.
It as well.
Yeah, so she just didn't. Yeah, she just didn't tell him, or you know. She just didn't want to tell him, or didn't know how to tell him, or didn't feel like it was her place to tell him.
Yeah.
But she needed someone to stay back with Dina. So that's how I took it. That's why she left off in the night. That's something I probably would have done. Like if I was in that situation or something like that, like I don't want neither party to get hurt. And my revenge both these people are triggered by my revenge. So they're going to leave if I leave. So I'm just going to leave out when they're both asleep, and that way they can't find me. They don't know where the fuck I'm at. And
So after that, she goes to the hospital. She ends up finding Nora. She kills Nora and gets the information of where Abby is out of her. And it's the aquarium. And then you spend the third day going to the aquarium. And then you get to the aquarium. Abby's not there. You kill a dog, which, everybody's making jokes about that. You kill a dog. You kill Owen and Mel in it. So this encounter actually, the third day you start with Jesse too, and then about halfway through it, you start hearing gunfire from the marina, and this is actually this coincides with Abby's portion of the game. This is the part where he's sniping, Tommy's sniping them.
Yeah.
Jesse hears this, and Ellie hears this, and Jesse decides to go help Tommy out, and Ellie decides not to and continues to the aquarium. And this is truly the moment where I was like, okay, Ellie, this is a really stupid choice. Like, your friend is like wants to go help Tommy. The three of you together could confront Abby in the aquarium, but you are like so fucking hellbent on this revenge right now. You're gonna literally go alone and abandon your two friends who are potentially like gonna be in combat fighting for their lives. Like, I did not like that part.
Yeah, that portion of the story was really stupid. I didn't like that. I didn't think it was plausible. I didn't think it was realistic. Even if you were fueled by revenge, I feel like a person would have used that to their advantage. Like, okay, let's go get Tommy and then we can make our way to the aquarium.
Well, because it ends up being stupid anyways, because you get to the aquarium and then you have a confrontation with Mel and Owen, and she tries to do the thing that Tommy did earlier in the game where he like tortured two people and like had one of them write something down and the other one say it out loud, and if they didn't answer it correctly, she would fuck them up or whatever.
Yeah.
And she fucks this up. Like, she tries to get Mel to point on the map and then have Owen say it out loud where she is or where Abby is, and Mel ends up trying to disarm her, and she fucking ends up killing Mel. I think she just stabs her in the neck or something.
Yeah.
Because they get in a tussle, and she shoots Owen during this as well. And they both end up dead, and like they don't find Abby, and then Tommy and Jesse show up immediately after this confrontation, which is why this whole thing is stupid to me, because it's like they literally got there at the same time you did anyways. Like, what the fuck? Like, so it's a little contrived. This part of it didn't work for me very well. But yeah, that happens, and then Ellie's like she sees that Mel's pregnant, and she's like, fuck, like I just killed a pregnant woman, and like that was kind of her like shocking herself out of this like bloodlust moment.
Mm-hmm.
And they leave, they go back to the theater, and then they're shooting the shit. Tommy's talking about gold or whatever, trying to get like a gold necklace for Maria, and he leaves. He goes out the front and into the lobby, and then Abby and Lev jump him, and they hear it, they run out. Jesse gets shot immediately in the head, and he's dead, and then Ellie's basically by herself against these two with Tommy on the ground.
Yep.
And that's where it cuts right there.
And then
into Abby's section. And then this is the part we were talking about that's like a really long side quest.
Yeah.
Abby's trying to find Owen. That's her whole basically section of the game for the first day. And then the second day, she goes in, because during the first day, she finds these two kids who are scars, Yara and Lev, and they are actually trying to run away from the scars because Lev shaved his head.
Yep.
Because he's the trans character in the game, and he was this isn't like super overt. They don't like bang you over the head with it, but if you pay attention, it makes sense.
It makes sense, yeah.
He was his role in society, in Scar society, was chosen, and he was going to be a wife to one of the elders or whatever, and which means that he was a girl, and he didn't identify with that. Shaved his head to look like a boy, and then they like ostracized him, two of them, and
they flipped the fuck out.
Right, and they were trying to kill him. Abby ends up helping them out, saving Yara, and spends this entire second day getting to them, finding out that Yara is not in good shape because her arm got like hammered, broken, and Mel tells her that it's like they're gonna have to cut the arm off basically to save her. And so you spend the whole second day going to the hospital to try to get medicine in order to do the surgery to cut the arm off.
Yeah.
And it ends up feeling pointless anyways, because in the third day, Lev goes to the Scar Island.
Yeah, he gets pissed and then runs off to
confront his mom, who fucking ostracized him because of what he did, shaving his head or whatever. And Yara and Abby decide to go to the island to save him. And Yara ends up dying in the middle of all this because they run into a bunch of wolves. And
so at that point, in the game, Abby discovers that Isaac is going to plan a huge invasion on the Scar Island.
Well, that was telegraphed from the beginning. That was from day one. Remember?
Yeah.
Because they're in that room by themselves, and he's like, look, I want you to pick your team. We're gonna invade them in like 2 days or whatever.
Yeah. So on that last day, Abby encounters the Scar or the wolves. That's why the wolves are there, and Isaac, does his thing. He kills Yara, and
Yara shoots him. Remember, and then the other wolves shoot her in response.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So
because Isaac was about to kill Lev, and she saved them, and then they run away, and then you get into this part of the game. So you're on the island, you're on the Scar Island, and obviously there's a bunch of encounters before this moment where you're fighting just Scars. But then once you run into Isaac, it becomes a complete free-for-all of combat where you're fighting Scars and wolves at the same time.
I thought that was interesting.
And dude, this part of the game, gameplay-wise, is fucking awesome. I loved this section of the game. These three-way encounters were just so cool. Like kind of pitting them against each other, like picking people off while they're in the middle of the fight so they don't notice you.
Yeah, they're in the middle of a full-scale war, and
you're trying to get through it.
You're trying to maneuver through it, and I thought that was really cool. But I will say, in my playthrough, I was over it. Like, I will say, like, if I had took a break and then came back the next day, I would have been, like, really into that part. But I kind of bum rushed myself through it because I was just like, I was so over how...
You were anticipating the end.
Yeah, like, I was so over it. I thought... The real... I didn't feel like this whole story was a side story until Lev left. And he just darted, and I'm like,
it was a reason to get Abby out of the aquarium,
exactly,
so that Ellie wouldn't find her there when she got there in day 3. It was like,
to me, that was the second convenient moment. Lev just so happened, and it was just so ridiculous. I'm like, what the fuck, man?
It also felt like they did it so that you could see the wolves destroying Haven. And just so you could see the island too, the Scar Island, because it's a really cool environment, dude, and their society's really interesting, and their like architecture and the way they do things is like really cool. And it's like kind of annoying that they're such a irrelevant part of this story. They really aren't important at all. Like you could take them out of the game, and I almost feel like it wouldn't matter. For the most part,
you're right. They're like the way the Scars are set up, or they're like almost a Native American tribe or Native American people.
But they're like a religious cult.
Yeah,
too.
Religious cult.
They worship this woman that the wolves killed, who was like like almost like a Jesus-like figure. She didn't want any fighting, and
she saved people, and the way that she's. It's explained how she saved her in a newspaper. Like there's no miracle. Like she just was really good at what she did. But as time went on, this was like what 20, 40, 30 years into the future or whatever.
25 years.
25 years. The story got misconstrued, and people were like, "Oh, this is a religious figure," and people were like, "Oh, did you read her text and everything of that nature?" Like it's the Bible, so pretty much like a Jesus-like figure.
Yeah.
And so when you go to their island, it is like a Native American cult-like island, and it's really cool. I think the people themselves are really cool. Unfortunately, they got wiped out, so we don't know what they're going to do the next game with these group of people. And like you said, I feel like that was a real waste, because I really wanted to know more about those people, not just from Yara and Lev's point of view, but from the other side of the spectrum.
Well, from like Ellie's point of view, like she barely runs into them. I mean, you run into them a few times, but they're not really an important faction for Ellie. Like Abby's side, that you're fighting them constantly.
But, she does run into them, but you're right. I think it only runs into like 2 or 3 times as Ellie.
It's a few times because you get your first like taste of them at the TV station. Because they had attacked the TV station and killed everyone in there. And you don't know what the fuck, like who they are or anything like that. But you don't fight them until way later that day at night when Ellie gets shot with an arrow. And is trying to like get through them, the first time. And then you fight them a few more times, but it's not like really relevant. Like you see them fighting wolves on the mainland, like going to the aquarium. Remember when you had the boat or whatever? You see a few little fights in there at the end of day 3 or whatever. But it's like not really relevant at that point. You don't even really know what the hell's going on. You just know that like a war's kind of breaking out between the two factions. But yeah, this section though on the island though is like it's such a cool set piece because they're literally burning Haven down, and as you get closer to it, you see them like going through it and lighting it on fire, and it's like. But then you actually run through Haven at the end to get to the docks, to get a boat, to get back to the aquarium, and you're running through it, and it's completely like burning down, like huge sections of it are on fire. It's crazy. It's like this really awesome set piece, dude. You're on horseback having to fire at other people on horseback. Like it's a really cool moment of gameplay, but like story-wise, I'm 100% with you, dude. I was just trying to get through this because I didn't really give a shit. Like I didn't care about this.
It was
like
such a waste. I mean, not a waste of time because, like you said, it was cool set pieces. But I feel like every player's mindset at that moment is like, I just need to get the fuck through this. Like,
I want to see her confront Ellie.
Like, yeah, exactly.
I want to see her get back to the aquarium and find Owen and Mel. Like that's what I want to see. I don't really care about this right now, even though this is really cool spectacle. It's a great action scene. It's like one of the best moments in the game in terms of gameplay. But it's like, yeah, it's just like it doesn't merge with the story in that way. Like it's not a good moment for the story in my opinion. So after that though, you get away, you have this actually really cool melee fight with a Scar that's like, it's like when games do this too, it's like some nameless grunt. When games do this, it's so jarring sometimes because it's like took me out of the game at how resilient this motherfucker was. Like how many times she stabbed him, cut him, hit him in the head with a fucking hammer, and this dude is still coming at Abby like during this fight, and it's like, man, dude, it takes so much to kill just some nameless grunt, but whatever. I digress. She gets back to the aquarium and finds Mel and Owen dead, and the dog dead, of course, too. And then Lev finds the map that Ellie left behind, and that's how she figures out they're at the theater. And then she goes to confront them at the theater. Thank God that they were smart enough to not make you have to travel to the theater too, or even partially the way to the theater. That would piss me off, dude.
I expected that too, and I'm like, oh my, I did too. Travel. Oh my god,
I did too. But it immediately cuts over to it though. You do have to like travel into the theater, which is cool actually. It's like a nice like building of tension back up because you know what's about to happen. But it's cool to see it from that perspective of them running into Tommy and disarming him and getting him on the ground or whatever, and then her side of it shooting Jesse, and then trying to shoot Ellie. But it's this. So at this point, the kind of conflict culminates, right? She shoots Tommy in the leg. Ellie runs back into the theater, and then you're basically in a boss fight with Ellie.
Which is really fucking cool to me.
This was really fucking cool. I bet a lot of players had a problem with this because they're like, oh my god, like I don't want to kill Ellie. But I was legitimately not sure if they were going to kill Ellie at this point in the game. Like
me too. I just thought it was cool though because I don't know about you, but I upgraded the way Ellie was playing. Like I upgraded my Ellie that way, and I was like, "Oh my god, I fucking made a fucking monster! I can't." It legitimately took me.
She's using bombs. She's like throwing shit at you. She's using all of her weapons too. It's really cool, and all you have is a pistol.
Exactly.
Actually, you don't even have a pistol.
No, you have a pistol
at a certain point. Yeah, she disarms you, and you literally have to like sneak up behind her. But she leaves like bombs. There was one moment when you're down below, and there's like the chains hanging from the ceiling or whatever. She starts using bombs there, like the trap mines, and I ran into one and died, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, oh shit. Like it's a really cool fight, I think, in my opinion.
No, it is. It's a really cool fight. She was a legitimate hard boss. I think more games should do something like that where you build a character up and then you just have to fight that character. The only game I can really think that did it, there's a couple games that did it. But this moment was almost like the Shadow Link moment in Ocarina of Time when you fight Shadow Link for the first time. So that's how I felt.
I don't want to say the character, but Baten Kaitos. I'm not going to say the character, but you remember who I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that moment. That's another moment I'm thinking of. That's why that game is so good.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I really like this fight. I thought it was really long and drawn out, and it was like a real struggle too. But eventually it gets to the point where they're fighting on the ground. She's trying to stab her, and then Dina comes in and tackles her, and then she's about to kill Dina. She's got the knife to her neck, and Ellie's like, she's pregnant, and Abby, like fucking full psycho, goes, good. You know, it was like really chilling though, because you know what she's talking about. Like Mel was pregnant.
Mel was pregnant. You didn't give a fuck. So
yeah, you didn't give a fuck. It almost would have been cool for her to like say that, like you didn't care, you know, something along those lines. But I don't know. That might have been a bit too much. Like you didn't really need that in that moment.
Yeah, you didn't. We all knew what was said, so we all knew it.
Yeah, and she ends up stopping though, because Lev is there, and he yells her name and is like, Abby, and then like Abby drops the knife and is like, she stops and she's like, if I ever see you again, you're dead. And like,
to me, that was so fucking cool, and it was such a moment of, Ellie, you're defeated. Your adventure is done. Like you tried, and I think that's why players were mad, because they felt like Ellie, like I did all this shit, and Abby just gets to fucking walk away. Yeah, and she and she kills Joel. She gets to walk away from this shit. No,
but she lost. Like she lost the fight. Abby won. Like literally won the fight. You know, it wasn't a situation. So later in the game, we'll get to this. There's another confrontation, obviously, but with a similar resolution, but it happens differently, and I think that's why people are dissatisfied. But so I do think this was a really cool moment. This was a great moment for Abby, because she's like, she did kill Jesse, but it's like she was never bloodthirsty in the way that Ellie was. You know, it's like she didn't really want to fight these people. Obviously, they were justified in coming after her from their perspective, but it's like from Abby's perspective, she's like, I just wanted this one guy. That was it. I wanted it to be done. You know, that I just wanted to kill this one dude and get out and live my life, you know? And it didn't work out that way. She fucked with the wrong people though, you know? And it was like, that was kind of probably her realization later in the game too. But it's like, it just never stopped for Ellie, you know? And so after this, there's like a flash forward, and Ellie is living on a farm outside of Jackson with Dina, and they have the baby's been born. Dina named him JJ. I don't know if this is Jesse Joel, something like that, like short for Jesse Joel, or like Jesse something else, you know?
We don't know the last name, but we know the first name is Jesse.
Yeah, right. So yeah, and you do the short section where you're kind of just like running around doing things around the farm with the baby, and it's like a cute section, but then it ends with like,
I thought this was the end of the game.
I did too. And you end up, you're herding sheep into the barn, and then the one little baby sheep gets away, and then the game starts getting like really dark.
PTSD.
Like yeah, and then Ellie's PTSD happens when the goat or the sheep rather hits like a shovel, and she sees Joel's face really quick, and it triggers her PTSD, and she like loses herself in it though this time. Like she has like a full on like vision of it, and she's like running into the room hearing Joel, and Joel's like, help me, Ellie, help me, save me, you know, and she's like having like a real bad episode. And then Dina saves her, or like gets her out of it, basically. But then Tommy shows up after this, and this is the next convenient moment in the game where he's like, because this one was probably the most ridiculous one to me, because he walks into the map and is like, he's got a limp, his leg is fucked up, like he can't walk really anymore. And
his eye is also gone because he got shot in the head, but I guess the shot didn't. Yeah, you didn't recognize that?
I didn't notice that. No.
Yeah, his eyes messed up because the bullet just went straight through and missed his brain.
Okay. I see. Okay. That makes sense. I thought he was dead. That's why I thought he was dead, because he did get shot in the head. Okay.
Yeah.
Back in the theater. But he walks in with a map, and he's like, look, I heard from some traders that came through that there's this really buff woman built like an ox, quote unquote, with a small kid with like scars on his face, and in Santa Barbara on a boat on the beach. And I'm like, what? What are the chances of this? Like, what are like legitimately? What are the chances?
Okay, so you're right about what they said, but the way they said it was he was talking to a few traders. So I got the impression that he had to go through a few traders to get to this information.
Yeah,
and then once he finally got the trader, the correct trader, or just so happened to get the right trader, who saw this woman, he got the information. So I'm assuming, however long this is, the baby looks about 1 or 2 ish. So I'm assuming he had to try to get this information about 1 or 2 years. So to us, it looks convenient, but he's been tracking down this information about 1 or 2 years.
Yeah.
So that's how I took it. But I can understand how it does look really fucking convenient. Like, yeah, in this exact location here in Santa Barbara. Like,
okay. And this goes further. I'll get to it in a second. So after she gets this information, Dina's like, he gets mad because Ellie's like, I'm not doing this. Like, I'm done with it. It's over. And Dina's like, Tommy gets pissed. He's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, I can't do this. Like, you have to do this,
Yeah.
And he leaves in a huff, and Dina goes out there and is like, what the fuck, dude? Like, don't come back to our house if you're going to talk about this shit, So clearly these people are damaged, after this whole adventure into Seattle or whatever, which makes sense. I mean, they've lost a lot and they didn't accomplish their goal. So
exactly. Yeah.
rough. So Ellie ends up deciding she's just going to go to Santa Barbara. She can't get it out of her head. She can't sleep that night. Like, and she decides to leave, and Dina tries to stop her. And this was actually, I felt like this is kind of it's an important moment, obviously, because she decides, like, Dina gives her an ultimatum, like, either you choose us or you choose this revenge. And Ellie decides to choose the revenge. And Dina, she makes good on her word later on. But how did you feel about Ellie? First of all, Ellie's decision here, and then Dina giving her an ultimatum like that.
I feel like it was fair. I feel like Dina's ultimatum was fair. I didn't feel like that was far-fetched at all. We already lost once. We have a nice family. We have a nice house. We got food, obviously.
Peaceful.
Peaceful. Like, we're happy. And I understand you suffer from PTSD just like me. Like, she says that too. Like, I suffer from it too. But I have a child. And you have a child. And we need to come together for this shit. And I felt like that was totally fair. Like, if Dina can do this while pregnant and taking care of a baby and all this shit like that, then you can too. And I felt like it was very selfish for Ellie to leave.
It was, and I think it's within Dina's character too, because she seemed the most squeamish about what they were doing once they were in Seattle.
Yep.
When Ellie started murdering people, like, without even a hint of remorse, Dina definitely had a lot of reactions to it, like little moments where she was like, Ellie, like, stop, like she was trying to get her to not kill as many people as she was killing, So it makes sense to me that Dina would be the one to do this too. Like, I just think she doesn't want Ellie to go down that path, because first of all, it cost them Jesse already. It's like, what else could she potentially lose? And it's like, so I think it was fair. I think Ellie's decision to go was the moment in the game where I was like, Ellie, no, like, stop doing it. Like, don't, like, I didn't want her to do this.
I was the same way, but I was also like, oh my fucking God, are you fucking kidding me?
Well, right. It was an indicator the game wasn't over either. Yeah. So then the game flashes forward again. She travels to Santa Barbara, and you have a few sections of
well, you miss Abby's part. So you play as Abby again.
Right, you do play as Abby again. Yeah. That's right. It flashes forward to Abby in Santa Barbara with Lev. They're trying to find the fireflies, like hints of the fireflies. And Owen had gotten information that they were in Santa Barbara trying to rebuild the fireflies. Abby didn't believe him at the time, didn't care, because she was so obsessed with her revenge against Joel. But once Owen died, she took this information and decided to go look for them, because she had what else did she have to do? She didn't care about the wolves. They were probably destroyed anyways at this point. Like, their society had fallen apart, and she had been ostracized anyways. So her and Lev went there, and they ended up finding a barracks underneath a house, based on some information they had traded for. And they come out of the house and they get captured by this group called the Rattlers. And that's it. That's her section. It's really short. You fight a couple infected, it's maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes at most. And then you switch back over to Ellie, and Ellie found their boat on the coast, or what she believes to be their boat. I mean, she finds evidence that they were there though. So, and it's beasts on the shore. And then she goes to the same place they went to, or tries to go to the same place they went to, and ends up running into the Rattlers as well, and almost gets captured, but gets her way out of it because some idiot was trying to get her bitten, and she got the dude bitten. It was a good scene for Ellie, actually.
Yeah.
But after that, you run into this group called the Rattlers, and this is basically the entire end of the game is you fighting them a few times, and you get access to a silenced assault rifle, which is actually really fucking powerful.
Yeah.
This thing shreds, dude. But you start running into enemies with helmets though for the first time.
Yep.
Which I thought was super weird. Like this is way late in the game to like have those kind of enemies, in my opinion. But whatever the case, it's very similar to the end of the first game where you start running into things that you had never encountered.
Yeah.
Weapons and stuff. And then you go through their whole, like, basically their encampment, their like little fortress or whatever. And these guys are the Rattlers, by the way. This group is like super fucked up. They turn people and then they chain them up and make them basically be like guard dogs.
Yeah, don't they enslave them? They enslave people. They sell the people they enslave, I believe. And then the ones that don't cooperate, they turn them to guard dog and shit like that.
Yeah, guard dog infected basically. So clickers / regular infected, like first stage. But you go through this whole section and you save some prisoners, and they tell you that Abby tried to escape and she's down on the beach with Lev, in this place called the Pillars or something like that.
Yeah.
And holy fuck, was this like super fucked up, dude. You get down to the beach and it's like just a bunch of giant poles in the ground with people strapped to them, basically like a cross.
They're crucified. They're being crucified.
They're like crucified. And it was like really haunting imagery, but she ends up finding Abby and Lev, cuts them down, and at this point Ellie's like super fucked up. Like when she got captured,
man.
When she got captured way back at the beginning of this section, like she got stabbed by a trap that they had set up like in the side. She had stitched it up, but all the fighting she had done had kind of like really fucked her up. So she wasn't in good shape. But Abby and Lev were like starved. They had no energy. They clearly hadn't eaten in days. Like, and it just looked like they were literally skeletons. Like Abby's muscles completely gone at this point. Like she's just like a regular person that looks like basically almost dead. And this is where the final confrontation happens. Ellie like helps them get to the shore to get to a boat. Abby puts Lev in the boat, and then Ellie's like, I can't let you leave. And Abby's like, look, I'm not fucking fighting you. Like, I'm not doing it. I'm not fighting you. And then Ellie has to threaten Lev with a knife to the neck to get Abby to fight her. And then you have this really long, drawn-out fist fight with Abby. And it's like really visceral and physical. And it's a cool moment in the game. But then it ends with her not killing Abby. She's literally got Abby under the water. She's drowning her. And then she lets her go. She sees like a flash of Joel real quick. And a moment we're going to get a flashback to actually in a second. And she lets Abby go. And then Abby gets to the boat, leaves with Lev, and that's the end of it, basically. And then they show you a flashback to the night before the dance. Actually, the night of the dance, rather. After the dance, before the day Joel was killed, where him and Ellie speak and talk about their issues, and they kind of come to a point of Ellie wants to forgive Joel and reestablish her relationship with him, because Neil did confirm, this is actually interesting, the intent there was that since the scene 2 years before where Ellie went back to the hospital and she confronted Joel about what he did, they had not spoken since that moment.
Wow.
So it's not obvious in the game, but he said that was the intent. That was what they wanted to convey.
Well,
and
I kind of got that, but I just thought it was like for a couple of weeks or some shit like that.
Yeah, no, it was like 2 years. So this was the first time they had actually like properly spoken. Like he said that they had like obviously functionally spoken in terms of like living in the community, because they both went out on patrol. So, it probably so happened that they would run into each other at like, the place where you get your guns or the stables or whatever. So
yeah,
but they had never actually they hadn't really had a relationship anymore at that point. So this was the first time they started talking again, and that really puts more power behind this scene, because like they really kind of came to terms with each other. And Ellie was like, look, I still think what you did was wrong, but I want to forgive you, basically.
Even without Neil, what's his name, Neil Druckmann? Yeah. Even without his insight, I feel like this scene was really powerful. I feel like even though I wasn't a big fan, I'm not a big fan of flashbacks. It did establish, like, as far as emotional lore for Ellie for Ellie, because she discovers during the flashbacks, like, wow, this guy literally killed everybody for me.
Yeah, she finds out the truth in the first game.
Yeah, and so in this scene and the last flashback scene that Justin just mentioned, she says one line to me that kind of sums up the entire game. She told him, "You took this from me. You took this from me. You didn't give me a chance.
Oh my god!
You didn't even let me. You didn't wake me back up and tell me what the situation was. You took it into your own hands and you decided what was best for me. Instead of me just living, my life would have had a purpose. You took this from me."
That's the line. Yeah, where she says, you took the meaning away from me of my life. Like, it's so powerful. And like, the delivery is from Ashley Johnson there. It's just fucking
I'm fucking it up. But I thought that solidified the entire game. Because you look at Joel's face, and that was my face. I'm like, fuck, you're right. Like, the player, Joel, me, we all took this shit from her. We didn't even give her a choice. We still saw her as a little girl when she was actually a preteen, but she still was a human being who deserved the decision of this weight of being immune. Like, it was her decision. Do you want me to kill everybody? I can leave you out of here right now, or listen, you will die, but you will save millions of lives potentially. And I felt like she was at the place when that in The Last of Us 1, she was at the place where she knew what was going on and she knew why it had to be done. Yeah. And
sorry, keep going.
No, yeah, we completely took that from her. And I felt like it was fair. I felt like so once all this happens and so between that flashback scene, then you start fighting Abby, or you're fighting Abby, and then that flashback scene happens, and then right before you kill her, that flashback scene happens, and then you let Abby go. The thing that a lot of people missed that I thought was really cool, and Cosmo not said it too, but I thought about it before I even watched this shit. All three of these people, Joel, Ellie, and Abby, have the same exact arc.
Yep. That's the game. That is what you're like. I think that's something that people have lost. Is like they're in different stages of it when we see them, but they're like Ellie. So Abby has her revenge journey before the game, and then she finishes it at the beginning of the game, and then she's in her post like revenge arc after she kills Joel for her section of the game.
Exactly.
Ellie is doing her revenge journey up until the very, very end of the game. And we don't see her. We see her post-revenge story a little bit, like what the fallout is of her revenge story afterwards. But it's the same journey. They're having the same journey. Like and I think that's what's kind of like lost by people. They're getting too like mired in the exact details of these characters and what they're doing. It's like, that's kind of the thing, is like, Ellie doesn't fulfill her revenge. She lets it go at the end. Like, she makes a different choice,
Well, if you want to say like and people are like, well, what was Joel's revenge? I think Joel's revenge was he saw his daughter die and he couldn't let that shit go. Yeah. He went through all this shit, and once he found Ellie, he cleaned to Ellie, and which is a good thing, right? But at the end of the game, he lets that fear of losing her cloud his judgment. Yep. And we see it's
the weight of the choices and the consequences.
I was about to say that actions have consequences, and eventually his consequences came back to haunt him. And
the same thing happened to Abby.
The same thing happened to Abby, and then the same thing happened to Ellie, because once Ellie, she doesn't fulfill her revenge plot. She doesn't kill Abby, obviously. So she's like, okay, well, I'm going to go back. She goes back, and then Dina's gone. So you lost the love of your life and your child, and this life that you had, all for the sake of revenge that doesn't even matter anymore.
Well, yeah, and Dina left all of Ellie's shit in that one room too.
Exactly.
So really, like, solidifying, like, I'm done with you. You know,
Like, I want nothing to do with you at all.
Well, and the really fucked up cherry on top too is like Ellie picks up the guitar and tries to play it, and she loses 2 fingers in the melee with Abby at the end. Like Abby like bites them off of her, and she can't play guitar anymore. Like,
oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
she doesn't have all her fingers, so she can't she can't put her fingers on the strings like to play them properly. So she can't play, and it's like she's lost everything, even the ability to play fucking guitar. She can't even do that anymore, and it's like that. I mean, yeah, maybe it's heavy-handed. I think like some people probably have an issue with that, but I don't know. It works for me ultimately. Like that flashback, you're totally right. Really like brings it all together. It's like, holy shit, no wonder she was so pissed. She was literally trying to get past what Joel did, and then it was robbed from her. Yeah, again, like her choices and her agency was robbed from her again, by somebody else.
Yeah, Ellie never, and that's another thing too. Ellie never had her own story. Well, she did technically, but she's doing all this for other people, right? She's never just did it for herself. She's doing this revenge plot for Joel, or for Joel. She's doing that because she feels like she has to, because she has to redeem Joel, because that was her father figure, or whatever the case may be. But before that, she, like you said, Abby took away her life as far as getting to forgive Joel. She was just about to forgive him. She's like, well, I can try to forgive you. And that's the last conversation they had. And now he's dead. I can't even do that, because you know why? Abby took that from me. So now I gotta go kill Abby. And you know what Abby took from, or you know what I took from myself? Or no, then Tommy's like, yo, you gotta finish this. You got to, for us. Yeah. And she's like, all right, well, let me go. And then she goes and does it. And then she comes back, and now Dina's gone. So it's like she never lived for herself. She was always living for other people. And one can make the argument that leaving was doing that for herself, but I feel like that was more so because Tommy came in there and was like, yo, you gotta do this for us. Like, he was my brother. Yeah, and he sacrificed everything.
There's a reason they showed him showing up.
Yeah.
Like, he definitely is the thing that triggered her to go. Like, she probably was thinking about it, but I think that makes sense. Like, and it's, I don't know, it's like a powerful ending, because you feel like it's so just sad, like Ellie's just lost it all. And like, so I want to talk about, I think now, like, real quick, like, where does the game, because I do believe there will be a third game based off this game. This is a really satisfying place to leave this series, I feel like, at this point, because it's so sad and depressing. Where do you think a third game would go? Do you think we'd play both characters again?
That's a good question.
Because you think Abby is trying to get to that island that the Fireflies were at, right? And
they made
intro screen after you beat the game kind of indicates she did. At least that's how I take it.
We may continue with Abby, or we may get play as Lev as a main character. I think Ellie's arc is done. I think her arc is completely finished.
Really? I don't think so. Like, there's got to be something more to it.
What else can she do besides try to find someone who can harness her immune ability?
That's what I'm saying. I think there's an arc there where she tries to go find the Fireflies herself. Okay. And ends up running into Abby again,
I can see that.
And I know people probably have a problem with this, but maybe Abby has to save Ellie for some reason. Like, Ellie gets in a situation that she's stuck or captured or surrounded by infected, and like Abby has to save her or something.
So that, I think, is rectified. I don't think that's a far-fetched idea that they become friends in the next game, because they both settled their scores with each other. Mm-hmm. One can say they both actually, and you know what? It's another plot, another subplot too, showing mercy has a benefit, because hadn't Abby showed mercy to Ellie, Abby would have died.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because nobody would have saved her at the Rattler's place. She would have just died on that beach.
And then for me, in my opinion, Ellie leaving or showing mercy to Abby, she lets all that shit go. Like you saw, in my opinion, you saw the relief in her eyes when she just let it go. She just let all that shit go. And now, unfortunately, she has to live with her consequences for what she's done, but she's no longer living for anyone else. She's living for herself. And I feel like she deserves that after all the shit she's been through. She can finally just live for herself. And I feel like the third game, that's why I said her arc maybe finished, because now she can just live for herself. She may not want nothing to do with anyone because she's just living for herself now. Like
yeah. But I think because Skillup mentioned in his review that this game is bleak and like unrelentingly so, and I don't necessarily agree with that fully, but it is a pretty bleak game. But I think the third game could be the reversal of that, where there is hope again. You know,
this game was the Empire Strikes Back of Last of Us.
Yep, that's the way I'm thinking of it too. This is the dark middle game, and I think the third game will be the one that wraps up the story, and it probably, I would expect, ends on a lighter note. That would be my expectation.
Yeah, I feel like they wanted to take you as low as you can with the characters, show how really dirty this world can be.
Yeah. Well, because wouldn't the story come full circle too? Because Joel killed Abby's dad, who was going to make the vaccine to save Ellie, and then Abby kills Joel in response. Ellie goes to try to kill Abby multiple times and fails, and then lets her go. But then in the third game, decides to find Abby to turn herself in to be the cure. Wouldn't that kind of bring the story full circle? I feel like it would. You know,
it would, because I mean, Abby lost not only her dad, but she lost her entire fucking life.
Fireflies.
Yeah,
right.
She lost her entire life because when she not have went on that adventure and saved Lev and Yara, she would have still been in a WLF and had that whole life and everything of that nature. So I mean, it's a lot of subplots in there. She had to forgive Lev. She had to learn how to forgive and let shit go. Like both these characters and Joel. Unfortunately, Joel didn't learn how to let shit go until it was too late. But these characters both had the enough time to they had the opportunity to let shit go. And Ellie actually did let it go, but then got wrapped up into it again. Whereas Abby, I felt like like you said, it was the opposite, right? She already fulfilled her thing, but those actions have consequences, and now almost everything that led up to what she done, she lost the WLF, and she lost Yara, and all this other stuff. All she has is Lev. You know what I'm saying? So
right,
it's a very complicated thing, and it's like, to me, it's a really good game because it's left to your interpretation. Like,
I agree
of what's going on.
The further away I got from the game, the more I liked it, honestly. Like, I think initially when I finished it, I was a little lower on it, but the more I thought about it and I started absorbing other people's opinions about it, and I was like, man, I like this plot. It's a really
good plot. That's why I wish people would get out their own asses and actually like look at it for what it is. Analyze it for what it was.
Butthurt about the fact that Joel died and you play as killer for half the game. Like,
exactly.
Who cares? It's so irrelevant. Like it's. I mean, I guess it's relevant, but it's like you okay. This goes into something else I wanted to talk about is the online discourse around this game and online discourse in general. You know, we talk about this a lot on the show, but this is important with this game is that I just think I think the sense of ownership that fans have over the things they're fans of sometimes gets out of control, and I think this game is a situation of that kind of confirms that kind of thing, because these aren't your characters. You don't own The Last of Us. Like it's Neil's story and Naughty Dog's story. Exactly. They can do what they want with it. And if you don't like it, okay, that's fine. You don't have to like it. But to be as vitriolic as people are being towards the voice actors, Neil, Naughty Dog, people in general who have a different opinion as them, it's just unreasonable. And this goes in both directions too. Even the people that like the game, it's like this is art. This is how it happens. Like sometimes stories get written and we don't like the way they are written. And like Game of Thrones is a great example of this. I hate the last season. Most people do. That doesn't mean I want I'm like sending death threats to the people who made Game of Thrones. Like it's completely not valuable. We can analyze why it was bad, give that feedback, and hopefully they improve in their future projects. That's what we do. You know,
you are correct. The difference between Game of Thrones and I even put Star Wars in this.
Yeah.
Those objectively weren't written well. Like
yeah, right.
They just weren't written well. This game is written really well to where you have to look past that death to understand the entire plot of the story.
Right.
It centers around the whole idea of revenge. It centers around Ellie not being able to fulfill her life. She doesn't have a life. Honestly, she's living through other people. She's living for other people. Abby is going on this revenge tear, and it tears everything apart. She's essentially Joel.
Yeah.
And Joel is the catalyst.
She breaks their lives apart with what she does.
Exactly.
Like, the same way Joel did.
And then she tries to go on her life, but gets captured, tortured for a couple of months, and I'm pretty sure that completely broke her. So it's like no one was looking at all that. I wasn't even expecting Abby. Once I saw Ellie take Abby down, I knew she wasn't going to kill her. I'm like, because you could have just left her up there. Like you could have left her up there or stabbed her when she's already crucified or whatever to get your.
She was already second guessing it at that point.
Exactly.
She's like, I'm gonna cut you down so I can have this like fucking drawn out fight with you. Like what?
That doesn't make any sense. No, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, she had already been like hesitating probably, and then like she wanted to get herself in the mood to kill her. I feel like that was why she tried to make her fight her, and it ended up not happening. Like she changed her mind.
Yeah. Know? So I agree with you. We definitely don't own the characters. To me, this is what Star Wars should have done. That's my cat. This is what Star Wars should have done. I would like to have seen the other side. When the Death Star blew up, man, my family and my kids, or my family and my friends that were on the Death Star when it blew up, I want to kill the rebels and all this stuff like that. Like I would have want to seen that side, like someone trying to pursue Luke Skywalker because they knew that he was the main person that killed that blew up the Death Star. We didn't get that. We got that with The Last of Us though. We saw the Death Star get destroyed, aka the Doctor get killed, and then we saw the other side, the Abby side of people, or the Empire, if you want to call them that. Yeah, they're people, and they were affected by this.
Yep. And it hurt them, and honestly, it kind of, I might be projecting my own interpretation onto the game a little bit too much here, but it almost has a bit of a commentary on differences of perspective in life, and this is like really relevant right now. Yeah, and it has been for the last like 4 years. I feel like is that really coming to terms that people have different perspectives from you, and that's not wrong. You know?
Yeah,
is that Ellie had to come to terms with the fact that Abby kind of was justified in what she did, and that maybe that doesn't dissipate the anger you feel, but Joel fucked her life up, killed her dad, and ruined the Fireflies and destroyed humanity's hope. Everything that she had lived for up to that point, Joel destroyed that, you know? And Ellie had to come to terms with that realization, you know? And it's like, and I feel like that's true of all of us as well, is that we always hurl insults at people who have like even slightly differing opinions from us. And it's like, they have a perspective too. And there's probably good reason they have that perspective. And we don't live their life, so we can't see it, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, when you get a window into it though, you're like, oh, that's why they did that. And that's what this game is doing. It's showing you that other side. It's showing you the wolves, is that they're not necessarily bad people. They look super militant from the outside, but when you go inside, it's like they have this hugely functional fucking society where they have pregnant women and like all sorts of like people have different jobs. Not everybody's a military person, you know?
Yeah, they have legitimate classes and stuff like that. You saw teachers with children, like
right, exactly. So it's like and from that perspective, it's like these are the people that killed Joel, but they're otherwise like look almost harmless, except for the perception of their military, the way their military acts. But the people inside, like they're normal, like for the most part, they're living like a normal, safe life, So it's like I don't know. I feel like I am projecting a bit, but I just see that in this story, is that there is another side to things, and I think we as a society have to remember that and have that empathy to see that,
No, you're right. I mean, because I'm thinking about it, right? What if we had to play it as Abby the first time, and instead of like bloating up that back half of Abby's story, they blow up the first half of it, and we're on an adventure to Jacksonville. In the middle of her, like I say, like maybe 5 or 10 hours into her adventure, or 5 or 7 hours into her adventure.
We don't know what she's doing, but yeah,
we don't know what she's doing. Then she finally catches up with Joel. She kills Joel, and then that last 7 hours, we cut a lot of the shit out, and then that last act happens, right? So we got her side of the story, and then we play as Ellie, and depending on who you chose first, or you can play as Ellie, and that shit happens right at the beginning of Ellie's story, and now you're on this adventure to get Abby. So I mean, it's just a lot of different ways they could have done it, and a lot of different ways players could have looked at it. But you're right. I mean, it was about perspective. It was about the art of revenge, the art of forgiveness, redemption. Like, at what price do we need to redeem things or to get revenge? Takes a toll on your body. Another problem I had with this game is the discourse of character design, and it's nasty on both sides.
It's just gross though. The fact that people have such a problem with the fact that Abby has fucking muscles is so pedantic. It's just like they literally
I see the other side of that, right? And they show a gym inside of it, so it's not out of the range of possibility that she's this fucking buff. They're like, oh, so I popped up the era and all that stuff. Like, bro, first of all, you play as Abby the first half of like 3 phases of her life, like when she's really young, and then when she's like,
you see the stages of it.
Yeah, you see her get buff over time. It's not like you just.
And it's like 4 years. You know?
Exactly. So we saw that, and they're like, I saw people saying like, oh, she can't get that buff without steroids and whatever, bro. Like, and then the other side is like Polygon was or like certain news articles were posting like, gamers have a problem with, buff women and stuff like that. And it's like, that's not necessarily true either, because there are plenty of buff women in video games that people fucking love. There are a couple of Street Fighter characters I can name off the bat. There are a couple of other like characters I can just name off.
From Uncharted. It's pretty buff.
Yeah,
like, she was a kick-ass fighter too.
Yeah, so I mean, there are plenty of buff, muscular women that gamers love, and it almost sound like they wanted gamers to sexualize Abby, and I don't. That's weird. Yeah, that's how I read the article. It's like, I'm like, do you want, like, the article was like, well, they fantasize about Chun-Li and all this stuff like that, and these other characters. What about Abby? And it's like, Abby wasn't designed that way. Like, that wasn't the designer's intent. The designer's intent was to show you how
she turned herself into a weapon.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
that's what she was supposed to be visually. Yeah. And like, to me,
and that's how I felt when I was playing her. I felt like a fucking weapon. Like, that's really accurate. Yeah, she was a weapon.
And well, yeah, because the cutscene, the flashback with Owen, where Owen is like asking her to like give it up and come with him to the Fireflies, and she says no, like, we need to get back to training. That's her showing how dedicated she is to this. Like, she wants to train over being with the man she loves,
Exactly.
She loves Owen, and it's like, that's clear throughout the game, and she was willing to give that up in order to like get herself to a position where she could take her revenge, and to me, the people that are like up in arms about her body type, I am gonna bet you a large majority, like 99% of them, are just mad that you play as her, and they don't like the character because of that, and the fact that she killed Joel, and they're just coming up with reasons to be mad about the character. It's not like a real critique, I feel like, of the character, because it's not really there. It's like they give you plenty of reasons to understand why she is as buff as she is. Like I can see it. Like it doesn't, like it's not, there wasn't a leap for me there. Like it was like they show you the gym at the beginning of the game. 4 years had passed. They show you throughout the flashbacks her progression. It's like I think they did enough. They laid enough groundwork to make it plausible, in my opinion.
Yeah, she let go of her being a little girl once her father died. You saw that, and I really want to point out like how different the gameplay was. Like with Ellie, she was real slick and slender with her moves and everything like that. Whereas with Abby, every punch was like powerful. Every weapon you had was loud as fuck.
Finishers on enemies were fucking just like, dude, she'd be stomping heads on the infected and stuff. Like,
yeah, like man. Ellie was a survivalist. Abby was a soldier. Like, exactly. they really wanted to show the stark difference between those characters, because yes, they can do the same things, but they do it in vastly different ways. Every animation takedown from Ellie was vastly different from Abby. Abby in certain situations just had to straight up go inside and just kill everybody, whereas Ellie had the choice of like being a survivalist or being a soldier, whereas Abby was just like, she was a survivalist, she had the survival skills, but you knew she was a soldier first. And
well, a lot of her combat sections are designed that way, where you actually have to fight. Like,
exactly,
you don't have a choice. Like, there's no stealth. Like, that happens a lot. So yeah, I totally see that, and it's, I don't know. I don't know. A lot of the criticism around this game just doesn't feel honest to me.
Yeah, and that's why it's so realistic that Abby, because like you've seen big dudes. I've even been in this situation where I get into a fight with a big dude, and they show me mercy because they can obviously they got the best of me and they just about to stomp me, and it's just like, nah, I'm good. Like, I've already proven that I can beat you. And that's what she did, right? Abby is way bigger than Ellie. It was just so realistic that she was going to win this one-on-one fight.
Yeah.
And yeah, Ellie had the tools, but Abby just had brute strength, and she got the best of her. And yeah, she showed her mercy. Like, fuck it. Like, I'm going to just let it go. I mean, Lev helped a lot. But yeah, she let it go, and sometimes it takes a while to get over that type of shit. So I don't know. I think gamers, like you said, they're just trying to find a reason to hate her because the character, and I think journalists need to get over the idea that they were trying to paint gamers in the sexual or a misogynistic way. Because we wanted to sexualize her, and I didn't get that. Even though gamers were egregious with Ellie or Abby, I never got the sense that they wanted to sexualize her. They're just like, they just were trying to find a reason. They're projecting their hate on her because Joel died.
Right, exactly. That's how I feel about it. They're finding whatever reason they can to dislike the character.
Yeah.
Because I don't hear mention of the good parts of Abby's story. I don't hear mention of those in the criticisms of her at all. Like the set pieces we were talking about that are fucking awesome. Like, they're not really mentioned. It's like, it's the things that are mentioned are that she's too buff. It's the disconnected nature of her story versus Ellie's. And that's like, that's kind of the main, and the fact that she killed Joel, like those are the criticisms against her that I've heard for the most part. But like we've said before, it's a matter of, like, it's just a matter of perspective. Like Cosmonaut like made a good point in his video, is that you could literally like take Abby's story and like make it the first game, and then this be the second game, and we would hate Ellie instead of Abby.
Exactly.
Like it just like it makes like it completely, it's all perspective. So that's kind of the point. That's why this whole conversation is so lost, is that people are just like, they get attached to a character and they're like mad the character died. It's like people talking about Joel as like a quote beloved character. I'm like, what are you talking about? Why would you say that? Use that word for Joel, like beloved?
No, he's not beloved. Like everyone is like, man, this guy is fucking terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I like the character and like he's likable, but beloved. Like that's a bit far, man. The guy.
I think people are in love with the story, but they don't know. They don't know it. They just project it on Joel, where they're actually in love with and Ellie, where they're actually in love with the entire plot of the story, the entire emotion behind it. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what a good story. Honestly, like they proved Naughty Dog's point. This is a good story. All this emotion, all this hate, visceral, all this love that the game's getting, like. That's honestly what a good story does. Like, it doesn't unanimously get hate like The Last Jedi or anything like that, or like the season 8 of Game of Thrones or something shit like that. That's not a good story, or not a good. You can tell that's not a good piece of art when it unanimously gets praise, like the Breath of the Wild, even though it's a good game, but people over time start to see that it was a bad game. I felt like this game, everyone's everywhere, and I love that shit. I love when everyone's everywhere with the game because. It's just a matter of perspective how you see it. Like someone can hate the game, then they talk to the right person, like a person they actually respect, and the person's like, I liked it because of such and such and such. And like, wow, I didn't think about that. That's true. Or somebody can just absolutely love the game, and the other person's like, a person within reason they respect, like, I liked it, but such and such, such and such, such and such. And they're like, wow, I didn't see that. And they may drop their score on the game. That's why I like this game from that perspective, because if you told me that it was a 10, I can understand it. If you told me this game's a fucking 2, I can understand it. And it's like I understand both sides because that's how great of a range this game is.
Yeah, I don't know about a 2.
I over exaggerate. Maybe like a 5 or a 6. I can see somebody.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, because the gameplay and the environments and the audio and all that stuff. Like I feel like there's an objectivity to like it being at least good. Like it's not badly made, like from a technical standpoint. It's just like you might not like the story, or some bits of the gameplay. It's like, but yeah. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have a couple other things that I had written down. In terms of the pre-launch advertising for this game, I do want to bring up the fact that they did a lot of misdirection with the pre-launch coverage of this game. Because, dude, I'm remembering a lot of trailers that they showed where they like swapped characters around. The trailer. Do you remember this where they finally showed Joel for the first time? This was at like PSX, I think, like 3 years ago or something like that, where they showed Joel for the first time and he says the line, "You think I was going to let you do this by yourself?" or something like that. And that line is literally one that Jesse says when he shows up in the game. And it's the exact moment. And they just swapped the characters. And they did that a couple times with pre-launch coverage. And people are starting to point this out. And Neil actually did confirm this too in one of the things I was listening to, is that there was misdirection. And they did it on purpose because they wanted to obfuscate the story. And I do think I want to kind of ask your opinion on this. Like, how do you feel about that? Because we've talked about Halo 5 before and what they did with that. How do you feel with me saying that in this case to make it, because they kind of made it look like Joel was in the game more than he was, and that he wasn't going to die and that he was going to be part of the revenge plot, like helping Ellie out. And
all right, I have to be objective. Because if I say, oh, well, they did it right here, that would be wrong. So being objective, I think it's wrong of them to do that.
Yeah. But doesn't the way they do it matter though for the context?
I was just about to say that. So I think in certain instances, right? So I don't know if you remember back in the day, and I can't remember specific examples. But they did this for movies where they showed the scenes in movies. Marvel did it, and for trailers and stuff like that. Especially when TV was like really a big thing. Now that TV's hardly any, I don't even know anybody who watches regular TV, but when like TV was a big thing, TV spots would show parts of the movie that did not exist in the actual movie. So this is not a far-fetched thing. The problem with Halo was
they suggested a story that was way better than what you got.
Yes,
that's the way I took it. Yeah.
That's exactly the problem. The problem was the trailer stories and the marketing team's story was way better than what we got. Whereas with this one,
that's a matter of perspective, I guess.
Yeah, I can say that we didn't know what the fuck the story was. We didn't know the story, honestly. We just saw bits and pieces here and there to where people were just like making speculations, but there was no concrete like, oh, Ellie's gonna take the fight back. Like that was in the Halo 5 thing, right? Where they're like, we're taking the fight back for Master Chief, or we're looking for Cortana, or you're chasing, you're hunting down Master Chief, and it's like that's not the plot at all.
We didn't even know who she was fighting in this game until like a few months before launch.
Exactly.
Like we didn't know who the antagonistic factions were. We did not know who the antagonistic characters were until the leaks happened. Abby was not even a known quantity up until basically the leaks. There was one trailer that she was shown, and it was the one that where she's captured by the scars, and she sees Yara get her arm hammered, and then Lev shows up. That's the only trailer we saw Abby in. And the thing is, we didn't know Abby was a significant character at that point in time. What they were showing there, out of context, just looks like some fucked up things happening to these characters.
Yeah, and I remember people were telling me. You remember the rumor was going around that you're going to play as a trans character? Like, I remember that was like a huge rumor going around, and like that didn't happen. So I think the misdirection in this game was like really good.
Yeah.
They didn't give you a story. They didn't give you a plot synopsis of what's going on, or give you an inkling of what's happening. Whereas with Halo 5's, exactly. With Halo 5's marketing, they projected this finish the fight type deal, or we're hunting down Master Chief, and then Master Chief's hunting down Cortana, and then we thought we were going to get two perspectives where you're walking up to Master Chief and you're about to shoot him in the head, or this another ad where Master Chief's walking up to Agent Locke and about to shoot him in the head. So it's like they didn't do that. They just showed like 3 or 4 trailers, and that was it.
Yeah, I used to be harder on this kind of thing with movies like you were talking about. I used to get really mad at movies that would show scenes that weren't in the movie. I would get mad about it because it's like you are false advertising, like in a way. And it depends on the context of the movie or the game, like whether the trailer makes it look more awesome than it is. That is definitely something that is a threat, I feel like, for these things. But if it's done well, it's not a problem. And I understand from the creator's perspective, they want to obfuscate what actually happens and not give it away, but still somehow hype people for whatever the thing is. So it's like a conceit for marketing. And I get it from their perspective. And frankly, I almost feel like if I were in Naughty Dog's shoes, I would have done the same thing they did, because without the leaks, like no one would have been the wiser until the game was out, Yeah,
and I feel like this would have been way different if the leaks didn't happen.
I do too. Yeah, it's a really unfortunate that they did, because that's the thing I think with a lot of reviewers is that I think a lot of them saw the leaks and either were spoiled by fans, or they just read them themselves or watched them themselves, and then they came into the game with their expectations pre-built, and they were. I actually kind of think Angry Joe is an example of this. I know you said you didn't watch this video, but I think he was just kind of like he read the leaks, didn't like them. And then his playthrough of the game was just confirmation bias of him not liking the leaks.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I took away from his video. And maybe that's unfair, but that's kind of how I felt watching it, because it just, I don't know. And I think a lot of people may have had that same thing happen to them.
When I saw the leaks, I just saw her standing over Joel with a golf club, and then it kind of went to black, and I couldn't tell what was going on after that. Okay. And I kind of went away from it, But like I said, I really didn't care for The Last of Us Part 1, so it didn't matter to me. That's why this game was so cool to me, because everything mattered to me once I played Last of Us 2, because I went into it not thinking the game was going to be that good. But the game actually blew me away. It exceeded my expectations as far as touching me as a story and gameplay wise. So you would have to have, for me to do a 180, I'm about to say 360, for me to do a 180 for someone who didn't like the first game and then loved the second game, I don't see how a lot of people, like, I know Angry Joe loved the first game, I believe.
Yeah, he gave it a 10.
Yeah, and for you to say, oh, this game, I don't know, what did he get a second game? Like a 8? 6? Whoa, wow, that's really bad. He gave it a 6. I feel like that's confirmation bias. That's like you said, bias on their side. Like, that's a confirmation bias. They're just trying to feed their own ego into what they read. They can't get over the fact that Joel died, and then you got to play as his killer. Like, they can't get over it. Whereas with me, I was just like, whatever. I'm gonna play the game anyway. And I went into it completely like 90% blind, and I was just like, oh shit! Like, they killed him. Like, he dead.
Yeah,
like,
no,
he's
that
not coming back.
Yeah, we both had a conversation right after like the night after we both played that scene, and we were like, man, I'm fucking in on this game. You know, like after that, like, because that scene's really well done and it's really powerful. The more I think about it, it's just like the acting there is just phenomenal too from everybody involved, and it's like it's
what other game will make you play through 10 hours to get back to a scene that happened? That scene was that powerful where we sat through 10 hours of a side quest to get right back to that scene because we wanted to know what was the conclusion. Like, what game will make you do, or what game will have that type of drive on the player to make them do that? I just think a lot of people, they saw that 10-hour gameplay for Ellie and they're like, I don't want to do this. I already know what it is. I didn't know what it was. And I was completely blown away by her, just her character development. Even though it was a side quest and a lot of her stuff was pointless, it still developed her as a character. Because that's usually the problem with side quests in games. They don't develop the character sometime, or like pointless side quests. Whereas this one, it actually did. So it's like a catch-22. Like, if you didn't have the side quest, you probably wouldn't like Ellie as much or Abby as much. But we don't like the side quest. So I don't know. It's a really weird dynamic. And I think this game is going forward. It's kind of going to be a staple for like more games. They're going to look at this and be like, this is a real piece of art. Like, this is what we need to do with our stories. I think a lot of people have a problem with that too, though. I think they look at these games and Naughty Dog's games as pretentious. And I think that's a lot of the blowback from this as well, is that this game is being treated as such. And there's definitely a range of opinions on it. So yeah, I think that's part of the problem too. But or why some people are so angry about it. But I did not actually talk about my feelings on the game's combat and stuff, so I kind of want to go through that real quick. Okay.
I do want to point out, we didn't talk about like the new mechanic for going prone. I found that to be extremely useful actually in the game in stealth sections. I really like the addition of that. I thought it was really cool. I particularly liked it with the bow. Like it's like really powerful, I feel like, almost. Because there's if you're in grass, like nothing can really see you unless it gets super close. So I like that addition. I will say for Abby's section, standout for me was the crossbow. Dude, the crossbow was fucking awesome. Like, such a dope weapon. If you hit things in the head with it, the bolt would not break for like multiple enemies, and it doesn't have the drop that the bow has in terms of its shot arc. So I just thought it was really, really powerful weapon. I was abusing the hell out of that thing whenever I could. And I also liked at first didn't like the pipe bombs, but the more I used them, I was like, damn, these are way better than Molotovs. Like, holy shit, dude. Like, because they're basically just grenades, like straight up. Because if they hit like a clicker or a normal human or regular stage 1 infected, like they just one shot them, like explode their entire bottom half. So I thought those were really cool. I did like Abby's loadout a lot better than Ellie's for the most part. Which I guess that was a criticism I saw, is that Ellie got like all the same shit she got from the first game, and then Abby got all the cool shit. Which I can see that is a little like, there almost is a little bit too much of the trying to make the player like Abby more than Ellie in the game, through not only through the story but through gameplay as well. Because yeah, she definitely feels like way more powerful at times in certain situations. But yeah, and that what about the factions? We didn't really talk about this, like how the factions fight, like how you fight them. How did you feel about that, fighting wolves versus scars versus infected?
I
Like, did you prefer one encounter type versus another?
I prefer the WLF.
Okay.
Out of all of them, I really didn't like the infected. I didn't like fighting the infected.
Yeah, I agree. The
that
changes to the clickers definitely made them more like tedious.
Yeah,
they didn't feel threatening.
They didn't. Yeah, exactly. They felt like an afterthought in the game, honestly, or like a filler episode. Like when I fought them, I feel like I was playing like, oh yeah, there are zombies here, guys. Like
such stark contrast to the first game.
Exactly.
If the first game got anything right in its gameplay, it's the threatening nature of the infected.
Yeah, exactly.
Those encounters were really tense.
Yeah, and I didn't feel that tense unless the game tried to make me feel tense. Like Abby in the boat section, that was a really tense section of.
Oh yeah, I like that a lot. Actually.
Yeah. But besides that, I mean, the scars, they were cool. I thought they were going to be more menacing than what they were. Mm-hmm. There was one legitimate section of the game where I had issues with them, and that was the first section. The first time you encounter them, and you got to run to the parking garage and all that stuff like that, because they were just everywhere, like legitimately everywhere in that section where you had to use stealth and everything of that nature. But besides that, I really didn't feel like they brought anything new to the table. Like they felt like WLF, but you know, a different version of them, to be honest with you. The WLF, the dogs added a new dynamic, but they weren't really as threatening as I thought they were going to be as well. Like I thought they would be able to sniff me before I even do anything.
Yeah, it was weird. They a lot of the time didn't do anything unless they actually caught a whiff of you somehow.
Yeah.
You know? Like they would just patrol with the person who was patrolling with them.
Exactly.
Know?
And I thought that would have added a dynamic where like even if I'm like on the other side, because there was certain parts where I'm like on the other side of the wall, they haven't detected me at all, and the dog just doesn't detect me, and I know that's not real. Like I know dogs can detect stuff way before a human can. Even my cat does it. Like when someone's at the bottom of the stairs of my apartment, my cat's like already alert and like looking out the window.
My cat knows I'm home before I even enter my front door. Like she knows, she can hear my car. She knows what my car sounds like.
Exactly.
You know? So yeah, it's like I'm definitely with you there. The dogs, the only thing about the dogs that was annoying was the fact that dealing with them was hard because you had to either choose to shoot them or the person that was patrolling with them. So you were going to get alerted no matter which one you took out, unless you like threw a Molotov on top of both of them. I
didn't have that experience. If you shot the person and there was no one else in the area, the dog would just kind of like look around and whimper, and then you can shoot the dog. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but go ahead. Did you have something else?
No, I was gonna say because if you use the arrows, that's primarily what I use the arrows for. I'll take the dog patrols out. I shoot the guy first or the woman, and then I'll shoot the dog because the dog would just whimper.
I use the bow so much. It's like absurd.
it's a really good weapon.
Dude, it's such an OP weapon. And then when you put the rangefinder on it, it's so easy to hit anything. Like it's like, I just think it's like, it's almost like overtuned, you know, and how good it is. Like, it's just so much better than any other weapon. Because if you get a headshot, it's an insta kill on anything, basically, except for like a shambler, I think. So Yeah, that weapon, I definitely abused it with Ellie because you can craft her arrows. Abby, the crossbow, I felt like was better, but you can't craft the bolts, so it
Yeah.
was limited to how much you could use it. But yeah. Well, I don't know. We've been going for a while, 2:45 almost. So I feel like we've talked about this game a lot. I think I give it a higher score than you. I think I'm more 8.5, 9-ish in the realm. I do think the first game is. I think the story in the first game is better than this game, but I think the gameplay in this game is far superior to the first game. It's kind of like inverted in that way. So
That's funny because I feel the exact opposite.
I know. That's interesting. Yeah,
well, I feel like everything is improved.
Yeah.
Rather.
Okay. Yeah. Because the story in the first game is really good, dude. I haven't played it since it came out though. Like I haven't played it since 2013, so I don't remember a lot of things about it, and I almost want to go through and play it again.
Yeah, I was thinking about doing that myself, just to see
like how different it is.
Yeah.
And yeah, I re-experienced that story too. But I kind of want to play this game again too, on like a higher difficulty, and really see how the gameplay can be adjusted. Because with all the accessibility options and difficulty options, I can tailor this game to exactly how I want to play it. So I'm like almost intrigued by that, playing a new game plus, but I don't know. I just got a lot of games coming out right now, man. So I don't know if I'm going to fit it in, but I'm thinking about it, which I usually don't play games twice, even short games. And this game's not really short. So the fact that I'm thinking about that is kind of a credit to this game, how good I think it is, honestly. So do you have anything else you want to add before we take off?
Nope, that's it.
Alrighty.
I think you guys should play the game. Just give it a chance. I think you should. If you haven't played it and you listen to this entire thing, we honestly didn't. Even though we spoiled it, we honestly didn't do the game justice as far as like the emotional levels it gives you. So
there's a lot of little moments too that we didn't talk about.
Yeah.
That I think would definitely have an impact. Plus, we're describing it like when you're seeing the environments and stuff, and you're actually seeing the scenes. It's different. Things hit differently. So, just trust me on that. We barely talked about the flashbacks too. So, there's a lot we didn't discuss, but hopefully you have played the game if you listen to this whole thing. But if you didn't, I still think it's worth it to play. Honestly, it's that good of a game, in my opinion. So that's it. We're going to call it. So if you like this episode, please like the episode, review the show, and subscribe to the show on whatever feed you're listening to it on. And if you could, share it with your friends. If you'd like to talk to either of us on Twitter about this game or others, or if you'd like to discuss what we talked about in this episode, you can do so at iTrap for the Hokage for Montrell. That is the number 4, not the word. I am at Thundernut01. Tiara was not on this episode, but she is at Victorian Jedi if you want to talk to her. And the show is at The Player's Take. You can also email us at theplayerstake01@gmail.com. This show, I think I'm anticipating, I'm probably going to post this for Monday. So there will be a normal episode dropping on Friday, like there always is. So look forward to that as well. All right, guys. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into The Last of Us 2. And we'll see you on the next episode. All right. Bye, guys.